across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, this is a momentous day for me. I've become homeless.
Oh, welcome
So,
on board.
I want to
can show you the ropes, don't worry about that.
I want to thank Julie Finley and all the team from Savills in Windsor, who are very dodgy people. But listen, I just want to say this one thing to you, and I've warned you about this on occasions, but what I'm about to tell you in terms of this story is not a criminal offence. So this Julie woman has not committed a crime under the Fraud Act. However, here's what they do now, and this is crazy. Right, so in the old days, estate agents actually did estate agents' work, right? Getting people together, putting deals together, whatever. They don't do that anymore. What they now do is they go, right, what we're going to do is we're going to vet the potential tenant. But actually, what they're doing is they're qualifying you for an insurance product to sell to the landlord. So effectively what they do is they say to people, just off the top of your head, who own 18 Convent Court in Windsor, we will act on your behalf in order to vet the potential tenant. They do not do that. What they do is they actually qualify you for a cheap insurance product and then sell it to the landlord for a high price. Now, the reason why this ought to be fraudulent is very simple. Because what, as an example, Julie Finley from Savills in Windsor doesn't do is she doesn't say to the landlord, I have an undisclosed financial interest, namely that I'm a reseller for an insurance product. I'm not genuinely doing any vetting. What I'm actually doing is ensuring that I can drive down the risk element of the insurance product and then sell it for the commercial rate anyway, which actually effectively means that you are deliberately exploiting both the tenant and the landlord in order to financially benefit.
They get a commission on the policy that they sell.
So I think what they actually do is I don't
know about Savills, but
yeah, they don't effectively what they don't do. They don't effectively pay for the vetting at full price. So whether they actually get paid off or whether they reduce their costs. But I've said this before, I think it's really important. This ought to be fraud. The idea that you could missell an insurance product in this way is absolutely extraordinary. The idea that you can bill a landlord for this vetting, which actually is no more than an undisclosed financial interest in Lloyd's of London. It's just, now I don't know if this woman's a moron or whether she's actually part of the conspiracy, but either way, it's so dodgy.
Well, I was telling you about in the makeup parlour earlier. A lot of it, I saw this guy going, I had a cash buyer for a house, and so I went to one estate agent, they sort of fobbed him off and said, oh, we'll do. Then he went to another one, and then he looked into it, and of course, when they get a mortgage for someone, they get a big percentage. Cash buyers, they don't get that. So if you are buying a place, a bit of advice for you, if you see a house and there's something going on with it, go direct to the owner, because then you'll find out, and they won't be happy with the estate agent, or go direct to the owner anyway. So
here's my advice. The number one thing you have to do is, if you're going to deal with an estate agent, don't bother with Savills in Windsor, they're dodgy. But what?
They have a right to reply.
Other dodgy firms are available, Winkworths. But anyway.
I mean, if it's not fraud, it's not dodgy. They're just having a too big piece of the pie.
No, I'm not saying that she has committed fraud. I'm saying that it ought to be.
In a way, she's doing the right thing for a company if it's making money.
No, on a serious note, what you really need to do is you need to check out who's vetting you and whether they are actually insurance salesmen. Very easy to do. All you do is you say, which vetting company is it? And check whether all the directors are actually names at Lloyd's of London. If they are, then they're just insurance people. But here's what I'm going to do from now on. I'm just going to do a land registry search and phone up the bloke that owns the place.
Maybe they vetted you and all the alarms went off.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. Certainly possible, yeah. By the way, it wasn't me that lost a load of money out of it, but there we go. Now, there's some good news for anyone who's worried. I'm currently staying with my friend Alistair Chambers, who, and I'm not joking, the wing of his house that he's loaned me is where Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn used to live when they were in Gloucester. So
but she got her head chopped off.
Yeah, so did I actually, courtesy of Savills in Windsor. So, I suppose we're all square.
Yeah.
We're all square. I know they're watching. I've emailed them today to say hello. So I think I've offended you. Don't care. Okay, anyway, let me tell you something that I am absolutely disgusted by, which I think is even worse. No, let's not keep naming them. Even worse than what has taken place. I genuinely believe that we now need to question what's going on in this country. You know, the tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of attempt to investigate the grooming gangs has just evaporated. I mean, I didn't think 5 million for 5 local inquiries was serious. I mean, you know, what was it? The Bloody Sunday inquiry cost £150 million. They stopped talking about it when everyone said the same person had fired first. Anyway, but let's not deal with that right now. But 150 million, you know, when it's our kids, nobody cares. Right, so even the tiny 5 million, nobody's bothered. Anyway, Curtis Hinton is a journalist and he's the presenter of In Focus, this new show. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going really well. We firstly, thank you for having me on the programme. It's great to be here.
Excellent,
but we launched the programme this week and it's going really well. Really,
I was amazed, actually. 1,500 people on X watching
live
it live.
At one point on Monday. Yeah.
And then Dave Atherton turned up. I'm joking. Okay, look. I don't even know what to say to you about this, Curtis. But you know, even the tiny, tiny element of an investigation into this has just gone.
It's ridiculous. They wanted to stop this from happening, and then they went, okay, we'll give you a little bit, and then they've watered it down again, and now they've made another U-turn, saying actually Jess Phillips came out and said that actually it's going to go ahead again.
Yeah, because she realised how the terrible, you know, it's a terrible look, isn't it?
But I don't think they care.
But apparently the councils could have turned it down, and some of them did. They refused it. You know, it was up to the council, and that's like going up to a murderer or rapist. The police go, "Can we arrest you and investigate you? And if you get found guilty, you go to prison. And if you say no, we'll just go on our way." You know what I mean? You don't give the offenders the right to decide whether they'll be investigated.
Yeah. Do you want to be investigated for rape? No. That's
we'll move on to the next person. Ask if they want to be investigated.
That's a surprise, Jimmy. Right? Well, I mean, it's just ludicrous.
I'd be shocked if they did this to Conservative councils and they said no.
I'll tell you something that I think's extraordinary is, I mean, I remember somebody putting out a tweet, which was a joke tweet, which was basically, look, you know, these young girls need to accept that this is the price of multiculturalism. And there was all these Labour MPs retweeting it. I mean, the reality is, and I'm just going to say before I say anything else, it was my intention to insult the estate agents. It's not my intention to insult ordinary, decent Muslim people in this country. But there is a perception within Labour, which I think is grossly offensive. There's a suggestion within Labour that actually it's worth letting these girls down in order to keep the Muslim vote happy, which by the way I think is grossly offensive.
It's evil.
Yeah,
it's evil, man.
I've never met a Muslim person who believes that part of their religion is the right to behave in this way.
Yeah. Also, I think, you know, they're worried about them being investigated. Some of the councillors, is rumoured, were actually involved. You know what I mean? And some of the police, and a lot of them obviously in Labour areas, they don't want that, and they don't want to lose the Labour, you know, the Muslim vote.
Well, Simon Danchuk said this. He said somebody came up to him and said, look, you've got to be very, very careful. We don't want to lose the Muslim vote. Yeah. I mean, I think that's despicable, because the reality is, you know, what genuine, sensible Muslim person is supportive of any of this? But the reality is, you know, it's just slapdash, isn't it? Let's just not mention it. But what annoys me more than anything else, in this multicultural Britain, basically, if any problems arise, let's just pretend they don't exist.
Mm.
Yeah, unless it's caused by white British people.
Yeah, that's right. Unless it's adolescence. Unless you're an incel. Right? If you're an incel, then that's a real problem. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
The guy who burnt the Quran, he's been done for some, blasphemy.
Yeah.
These blasphemy laws, they were already here. We just didn't know. They've got these race relations. But what if it wasn't anything? What if it was a protest, which I think it probably was, about free speech? So it wasn't actually being racist. It was saying, I can burn what I want.
Yeah.
So actually, in that way, if you did it like that, how could you say it's racially motivated?
Here's the stupid thing. I would argue the only reason for burning a Quran is if burning a Quran is illegal. That would be the only justification for doing it, right? Because otherwise, why would you want to offend your neighbours? I think that it's just unbelievable that, you know, blasphemy has been brought back in this country. It's crazy.
It's dangerous. It's incredibly dangerous because anything can go, and I fear that it's going to be blasphemy against Islam and not against like Christianity or anything like that. And that's my fear.
I mean, I will
happening so
say,
far.
Well, you can't hurt Hamas's feelings. They're very hurt about being a prescribed terrorist group. They don't know what we're talking about.
I'll tell you the thing that I will say, I've noticed with Muslim friends of mine, if anyone wants to call, by the way, 03444991000, I've noticed with Muslim friends, there is a tendency amongst every Muslim, well, not every Muslim, but many Muslims who are both, fairly moderate, is that they tend to believe that blasphemy is a public issue, it is a matter for the police. So when people go, oh, I imagine if I burnt a Bible in Mecca, I'd be okay, you would definitely not be okay under any circumstances. And I just think that this whole idea, which I think a lot of Muslim people have, which is we shouldn't offend any religion, is something that we have to rail against.
I want to come back to the point you said earlier about them blaming Muslims. I think Labour are exposing themselves. They're exposing Muslims and Pakistanis by not saying that it's these horrendous people that have done it.
Yeah.
They're leaving them open by, as you say, looking like they're defending them and the community by not investigating.
I mean, Curtis, let's just be clear on this. The police, who've been grossly dishonest throughout this process, when the police have said we needed to allow grooming gangs because we didn't want to offend the mosque, none of them have ever cited any evidence whatsoever that anybody in any position of authority in a mosque told them to allow grooming gangs, right? What they did was they simply asserted that the mosques would be angry. I think there is almost no evidence. No, in fact, there is no evidence, and there's no reason to believe that the imam of the local mosque would encourage the police to not
They protected him. The police actually arrested a father who knew his daughter was being raped in his house. They arrested him, took him away, arrested, and she was raped, sexually assaulted in that house, I think a few times by many men. And this was brought up in Parliament to Jess Phillips, who looked very,
do you know what I do?
Looked like a student, moaning and sulking like Harry Enfield, teenager.
Do you know what I'd do if I was a councillor or local council leader in that part of Yorkshire? I'd arrest the chief constable and put him on trial.
Yeah. Some of the councillors were involved.
It is a criminal offence for a British police officer who's got a warrant card to ignore a criminal offence.
By the way, Anna's here. Let's introduce Anna McGovern. She's only here. Is she coming in? No, she's on. There she is. Anna McGovern.
I'm in Portugal, so coming in would be quite difficult.
Yeah. Sorry, Anna.
I said I'm in Portugal, so coming
you're in
into
Portugal.
the studio would be quite difficult.
Well, you look like you got a bit of a time. Well, what's your view on this, Jess Phillips turning down the investigations and trying to fudge it in the last 40 minutes of Parliament? Now, apparently, you turning.
It's utterly shameful, and I think the decision for them as well to sort of squeeze that in right at the end is to avoid accountability. And I think they know what they've done. Labour is not to be trusted. Yeah. And the fact that they've taken this stance is absolutely despicable to the victims. We now have private figures. We've got, so for example, we've got Rupert Lowe, MP, and we've also got Ben Habib, who've now started their own inquiry into the grooming gang scandal, and other MPs are lobbying behind them to support them because it's incredibly important work. But it shouldn't be coming down to that. Labour should be taking this stance and investigating it. But it just seems they're not to be trusted, and I think they have very precarious intentions here.
And also, even if they're doing investigation, it takes years. I think you should just set up a police unit just specifically for these hundreds of thousands of rapes over decades and start making arrests like, in Chicago with the Untouchables. Forget the investigation because they'll just use that to fudge it and knock it into the long grass. Let's start arresting people at this from now on because it's going on right now. We haven't got years.
Just to dovetail onto that, and I'm sorry to steal your thunder, it's not stopped, Anna. It's still going on.
It still is going on, and the fact that they're not going, they should be making this a top priority. They promised to do this in January. They've now done this drastic U-turn. I'm not surprised. I don't think many people are surprised. And Labour are not to be trusted. I think they have completely the wrong intentions.
But wouldn't you, Anna, let me ask you this. If you were the Home Secretary, wouldn't you call in the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police and say, right, Go out and arrest these people. Not tell your mate, not phone somebody up, get your uniform on, get in a bloody patrol car and start. I mean, I remember when David Cameron said that if, remember when there was the riots where they were burning down stuff in Clapham Junction, David Cameron simply called in the Commissioner of the Met and said, if the Metropolitan Police surrender for a second night, we're going to send in the army. And then the Metropolitan Police Commissioner said, I will uniform up the detectives and take some action. Great. As far as I'm concerned, you call these people in and you say, listen, you lazy sod, you get out there and you nick these people.
Exactly, and that's the stance that they should be taking. I think not only are the Labour Party weak, I think they have a I think they're politically manoeuvring their way and trying to appease certain demographics and trying to stay in power, when in reality, I think everyone can see it for what it is. They're letting people down, they're letting victims down, and this is something that absolutely needs to happen. And the fact that they're not pushing through with this inquiry, I think they're very dishonourable intentions. Also, to anyone who's tuning in, support Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib's inquiry, that they're together, they're putting their own money in, they're taking donations, they're doing this work themselves. It shouldn't have to come to this, but if at least someone's trying to do something, they're rallying together and getting accountability and getting answers, because that's what the victims deserve.
Anna, can I ask you this question? I think you've been generous to the Labour government, but if I was to put a figurative gun to your head, do you believe the Labour Party are naive or willfully allowing these offenders to get away with it?
To me, it seems at this point they're willfully allowing them to get away with it, because you would hold an inquiry in that case. They deserve answers, and that's what an inquiry would bring. But the fact that they're not pushing through with this, it's beyond naivety.
It's evil, isn't it? I mean, they're literally
evil.
the most vulnerable in society. People who were in homes, girls, working class girls, who a lot of them were in homes and orphanages or whatever. They were the most vulnerable. They were abused, tortured, and sexually, they were raped in the most horrible ways, and this is what they're sacrificing them for their political careers. And maybe if Jess Phillips would have stood up there, we would have, because all her past work that everyone keeps going on about, I think it's all forgotten now, because it just shows she was only virtue signaling. She didn't really mean it. If she'd have made a stand here, it could have been the making of her.
Let's just remind ourselves. I'm willing to be fairly direct on this show, but I'm going to pick my words incredibly carefully here, because I don't want to say something that, even if I allude to it, will be so grotesque it'll be offensive at this time of night. But the case of Charlene Downs, probably the worst victim of grooming of them all, who was murdered. The allegation against these people is so grotesque that I will not allude to it, but it relates to a kebab shop. Right? This girl was murdered and the body was never found. And what the allegation is so disgusting that even at this time of night you can't repeat it and nobody cares.
And it went to court, that did, and failed on a technicality. So these people that were charged with murder were found, the case was
I think most people understand what I'm alluding to here, but who cares, never mind, it's only a poor white kid. Anyway, Anna McGovern, thank you so much. We're going to be back with more straight after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So, as you know, because I alluded to it, I've been dealing with idiots all day. But so I've not done my YouTube. But I'll tell you what I've started to do, and please do subscribe. You just go on YouTube and go to Andre Walker. I've decided to have a Racist of the Year award, right? Obviously, we gave Southwest Trains the March award, but do you know what? I'm feeling pretty comfortable to congratulate the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire Police. His name's John Robbins. He, pretty poor standard of career so far. He's not really done anything. Risen without trace. Got the Queen's Policing Medal, which is a surefire guarantee you a crap. But anyway, I gave him Racist of the Month, and the reason is because, like so many liberal white apologists, he has got a position of power and then kicked the ladder of opportunity away from other people who are white in order to prove his diversity credentials. Look, we were debating in the green room how this is even legal that West Yorkshire Police are openly discriminating against white people, trying to stop them becoming police officers. And I think it's pretty disgusting. They're already wasting a big load of money on diversity, inclusion, and equality, and of course, all the time. Whilst the grooming gangs are taking place in Europe, well, I'm not bothered about that. As long as we make sure the requisite number of transsexuals is in the police force, then it's all good. It's all good. Anyway, Mike Neville is a former police detective. Mike, I just want to ask you this.
Chief Inspector as well.
Well, detective is also
Chief Inspector.
Detective Chief Inspector.
Sir.
Do you know somebody said to me that the best way to derail a police officer in a trial is to call him constable when he's a detective. But anyway, look, you know what? I've got so many friends in the police who are incredibly proud to be people that run into, gunfire or attacks whilst other people legitimately are running away. I mean, do you not think that badge that you wore is being denigrated and disgraced by idiots like this guy?
It's really tragic, isn't it? I was really proud to be a Scotland Yard detective because across the world, people saw Scotland Yard as a sort of crime-busting, fair, decent, good place to be. And now you see this, and if you look at the definition of racism, it means like treating people differently or excluding them because of their race. And in West Yorkshire Police, you have this issue of like gold, silver, and bronze. So if you're East Asian, you class as gold. If you're West Asian, apparently you're silver. And if you're like me from a council house in Bolton and white, you're bronze. So straight away you're grading people into like these are the top, these are the middle, and I'm at the bottom. You're at the bottom too. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Is it not illegal though? Isn't that discrimination against the?
Well, the trouble is with it, it's so nebulous because they have this thing called positive action, which is apparently different from positive discrimination. When you read the definition, it's very hard to see because what it says is, positive action just means you give them a little bit of a help along the way, help them with the tests beforehand. But of course, the procedure afterwards is going to be totally fair. But you know as well as I do that they've already loaded all the questions.
It doesn't work the other way around as well. The NHS doesn't have the proportionate amount of white doctors in it. It's
Correct.
Very underrepresented. But there's no big kerfuffle about that because, of course, it's white people.
Well, 90% of nurses, of course, are female. Do you bother about that? No, I'm not bothered.
99% of bin men are men. They don't complain to women about that or becoming bricklayers.
I wonder what would happen if you arrived to this John Robbins character from West Yorkshire Police and said, I'm very, very concerned that there are too many black men in the Premier League. I wonder what he would say to that. What he'd actually say, I suspect, is, why are you going on about this, you racist? And then you say, well, hang on a second, how is that different to what you're saying?
Well, diversity, these people belong to a cult, really.
Yes.
The whole lot of them are all part of the liberal left establishment. And when they say diversity, what they in essence mean is fewer white men. That's what they're taught. When you boil it down, let's cut away all the rubbish. That's what they mean. And people, for people like me, I was the stereotypical police officer in the sense that I joined the army first at 16. I did 5 years in the army, wandered around Northern Ireland with a rifle, and then I left and joined the police. And about a third of the people I was in with were in a similar situation, all working class lads, and now they've flushed them out. You look at the senior officers. When I joined at Scotland Yard, there are 40 senior officers from commanders up to the commissioner. About half of those were ex-military guys, working class, probably went to grammar school like me. Now they're all of the same ilk. They're not like me at all. They're middle class, champagne socialists who went to the same universities and all believe the same thing. Because what they'll say to you is they're committed to diversity. What that means is superficial stuff. I'm black, you're white, you're fat, thin, gay, straight. But what they don't have is any diversity of thoughts. Every single one of them believes the same thing.
I've got to say this to you. I had a very dear friend of mine, I don't know if I should name him, I don't think it matters, Commander David Smith, who was the Metropolitan Police Commander of North London, incredibly senior position. And he said, what worries me about all of this, as you know, and you will know this, Mike, but perhaps people watching and listening won't know, there is a rule in the police, which I think is really, really good, that every single police officer at a senior level has had to be a police constable on the street for at least a period of time. I think it's 2 years or whatever. But he said, look, it's really important that somebody right at the top of the police can, and I'll tell you what he actually said, feel the collar of a see you next Tuesday, right? But he said it's really important they can do that. He said, I do not believe that the senior police officers now would have any idea about actual real policing because they're all just management trainees.
You see some police run away in the last few years from certain situations. That was unheard of when I was young.
Deputy Commissioner.
Captain Cowardice.
Yeah, it's shocking. And what the,
sorry, Mike, just to explain, whilst, I mean, Keith Palmer was a friend of mine, but while Keith Palmer attempted to defeat a guy with 2 machetes with his bare fists, and for 90 glorious seconds attempted to put up as much of a fight as he could, a man in an armour-plated vehicle was spirited away, who was what, a deputy commissioner?
That was a deputy commissioner, Mackay.
Disgraceful.
People call him Runaway Craig, who claimed that he'd gone back to the yard to make some vital operational decisions. But when somebody asked what was those vital operational decisions, there was no record of
change his underwear.
But the key thing with this is as follows, that no one has ever said to me, look, I didn't like the colour, sex or sexuality of the officer who turned up to deal with my burglary, help me when I was robbed, assaulted, raped or whatever else. What people say is I got a poor service, the officer didn't do this and didn't do that. So the vast majority of people really just want somebody to turn up who gives a professional service. They know that the police are not Sherlock Holmes. They know the police can't solve everything, but they expect them to do basic things. Look if there's any fingerprints, check if there's any CCTV, make sure that people are okay. Now, in West Yorkshire Police, for example, so every police force has an inspection. They call it a peel inspection. It's all about performance. And last year they were inspected, and it said quite clearly that their standard of investigations, investigating crime, that's a key police role, was needed improvement. They are solving less than 5% of crimes. 4.8%.
And that's the ones reported, because the more that happens, people just won't report them in the first place. So
you're absolutely. So if you're poor, in times past, you're absolutely right, because in time people only report burglary these days because they get a crime number so they can claim the insurance. No one reports burglary in the hope that the police will catch the villain and get their television back. So if you're poor and you haven't got insurance, it's like, why bother? But the key thing is here, what it shows is, like a lot of public sector organisations, the police have forgotten their purpose. They're so committed to equal opportunities, diversity, and all human rights, all these other things, that they've forgotten really our job is to prevent and detect crime. And this is what needs to be done. But under the current government believe all this. The Tories were bad enough in the sense that they let it go on. Just let it go on. This lot, they actively encourage this, and so it's really bad.
Yeah, but also, right, so I said I knew Keith Palmer. Let me explain why. In the House of Parliament, there was a bar called the Sports and Social Club. It got closed down because of too many people fighting in there, which is a bit... But nonetheless, you would meet police officers in there. Now, I will tell you what was extraordinary about police officers. Once again, Mike will know this. It's actually really hard to recognise them. right? Because obviously all you see is the hat and the uniform. The intention of the police uniform is to make these people identikit, so they don't have a personality, so they don't have a type, they don't have a gender, they don't have a race. What they are is law enforcement officers. Nobody's interested in whether he's tall, short, gay, straight, black, white, anything in between.
Well, he used to care if they were tall, didn't they? Anyway, you know, this diversity enforcement, apart from it being racist, you're guaranteeing the quality won't be as good because you're limiting the pool you can pick from. You're not using meritocracy. You're not getting the best people for the job, and we can see that manifestly on our streets.
They don't listen. I spoke to a criminal, you know, and what Cressida Dick would have fined Commissioner she wasn't, but she said, we want 50% women. Well, the trouble is that crime is not an equal opportunities employer. 95% of criminals are men. And so to get hold of a man, you need to be big and strong. Now, no doubt some women are big and strong enough to get hold of it. But the police is full of stupidity. So when I was a young police officer, I was on the poll tax riots with a 5'4".
I was at those as well, but not as a policeman.
But all the lefties, they even knew that for all their commitment to equal opportunities, it's easier to go through her than me. But then when I was a detective inspector, I had a female detective, and I figured out, because I dealt with criminals who gave information, that she got far more or different things out of men than men could get out of criminals. And so I said, I always want a female detective because, it's like Samson and Delilah, really. Oh, no, we can't have that, equal opportunities. So what they do is they try and ram everybody into the same bag and say that men and women are exactly the same, and that fails as well. But the key thing you said about colour, the only colour in the police should be blue. There shouldn't be any black police associations or anything else. Everybody should be blue. You wear that blue uniform, and that's what you should be doing.
I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something. Look, this might be me being negative, and there may be people watching and listening to this who think I'm being unfair, and maybe I'm wrong. But I will tell you, that Black Police Association, there's some solid gold wrong-uns that have been involved in that organisation over the years. Actually, people who dislike this country, dislike the people in this country, and also the level of corruption. This guy, let me give you an example of somebody who is not corrupt. That Neil Basu, he's just obsessed with every white person being a terrorist and nobody from the Muslim community ever being one. He's just pushing a political line.
Well, Neil Basu, a nice enough man, but I always say this. I was a detective sergeant at Brixton with him, and he ran the intelligence unit, and somebody said, take over from him, and he handed over nothing. Not one warrant, not one operation, nothing. And I just think, and then he's complaining because of racism. He only got to assistant commissioner. I just think I thought the most extraordinary one, and I think it was a low point. If I was you, and my friends had risked their lives and died for that uniform, I think the low point was his name Matt Ward? I might be wrong. When he made his statement about what had taken place on Armistice Sunday, or maybe it was a Saturday, for the Palestine protest, his statement in which he claimed that there were no examples at all of anti-Semitism, racism or antisocial behaviour associated with Mark. His statement, his official statement, was labelled fake news on Twitter. His official statement. And then he came back and said the reason we didn't notice any of the anti-Semitism, which now was all being tweeted about, is because we were so busy with far-right thugs we didn't have the time to watch them. Right.
Well, they're meant to be observant for a start.
Apologies for swearing, but I think we can all agree that's solid gold shite.
It's just, I just feel ashamed, really, in the sense that, as I said, I was proud to be a Scotland Yard detective, and the British police used to be seen as the most fair and impartial. People say, the worst of the world if you have the German as the police, and the British as the cooks and all this sort of stuff. But the perfect world is where the British were the police, where we were fair. And one of the things that really summed it up to me, there's a book by a young Jewish girl who came to here in the 1930s, this kinder transport. Yeah. And she said the first thing she remembered when she got off the boat in England is the policeman smiled at her, because she'd never seen somebody in authority like that, their friendly face. And that, to me, is everything that British policing should be about, and it's completely lost it. And in its efforts to be diverse and fair, because I was always told, Well, performance will be far better when we get more diversity. The detection rate has gone from 15% 10 years ago to 5% now. So if you're a business, you should look at this and say, what have we changed in the last 10 years that's made our performance collapse by, down to a third of what it was? But the thing is that people are obsessed with it. Rather than getting the right people who we don't care about their race, colour, whatever else, sexuality, sex, we get the right people in and we focus on crime.
Well, I'll tell you what,
All
before we hand over to Curtis Hinton, who's our guest co-host this evening, I will say one thing. I've made the point about this College of Policing, non-crime hate instance. I've often said, look, I'm a pretty experienced person in debating, and I can guarantee you what they've written is wrong. But I will say one thing, and I don't want to go over the top, but I mentioned Keith Palmer multiple times. To see somebody, for the sake of democracy, attempt to fight a guy with 2 machetes strapped to his arms with his bare fists, and then see a police constable knock on somebody's door to try and bully and intimidate them out of having genuine political debate. I'll tell you what would happen. They knocked on my door, they'd be making a bad mistake, because they'd be bawled out for doing it. Because I'm afraid to see somebody disgrace that uniform in that way would not go down well in my household. So, Curtis.
Mike, my question was for you, really. I mean, firstly, thank you for your service. It's always great to meet a police officer.
Not always great to meet a police officer.
Yeah, no. I suppose it's not. No. You served so long in the force. What do you think this is going to do in terms of crime levels in this country? Do you think people are going to take advantage of the weak force we're now going to have in this country because of the diversity has to be met?
Well, what the criminals do, of course, is take advantage. You only have to look at the epidemic of shoplifting. People feel entitled to steal. Wherever you go, people are just nicking things because they know the police aren't going to take any action. And what happens as well, it starts to really society starts to fall apart because if you're in a shop and you just see people run in and steal things, you think, well, why shouldn't I do that? Yeah. Why should they just get away with it? And you see so many criminals now. If you're only catching 1% of thefts are solved, 1%. So you've got 99 out of 100 chances of getting away with it. 5% of burglaries, 6% of rapes. Now, rape is difficult in the sense if you've got people saying, "Oh, yes, she said yes," and I said she says no. But when it's like stranger rapes, this is what's really struck me. When there's no debate about consent. Even then, it's only 6% of these crimes being solved. My expertise is images, CCTV and the like. You've got all these people being captured on CCTV, ring doorbells, being caught catching, doing criminal acts. Only about less than 10% of them are ever identified. The focus has got to go back on preventing and detecting crime. That's what's gone wrong.
Okay, well, I just want us to all do one thing. Right, something we can do. So, the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire is not just the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire, he's also the Deputy Lord Lieutenant of West Yorkshire. This may seem obscure, but what I want you to do is I want you to open up your X account and I want you to go to...
Mine's at Virtual Ash.
I want you to go Lord, so you put in Lord LTWY. That is the handle of the Lord Lieutenant of West Yorkshire. He is the person who hires and fires the Deputy Lord Lieutenants. Let's all tweet him and say, fire John Robbins for being a communist. More next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, so, right. We've got a call from Ken in London who wants to talk about grooming gangs. Ken, you're on Talk.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Ken.
This thing makes me angry. It makes not because I'm a Christian. Any man, any human being who understands that Muslim Pakistani men for years have been raping young white girls and sexually abusing them, and knowing that the government of the land stands by and protects these men. This is an amazing, despicable, the most horrible thing I've ever heard of any government being.
It is, isn't it?
But what about, I've heard you say before that you believe that the moral degradation of society is a significant concern. I think you're right. How does it make you feel when you see grooming gangs continuing to operate in this country, in Yorkshire, and the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire today says his solution to the problem is to ban white people being police officers?
Well, it's hard to believe, but Andre, it's hard to believe the mindsets of these people, these police leaders, this leadership who have been protecting them, mainly, I think, from fear of Muslims, fear of Islam. They're afraid to upset the Muslims.
And fear of their own career not progressing if they don't, toe the line, which is cowardice.
Correct, but this is absolute devilish cowardice. That's from the devil. This is the cowardice, in my opinion, that comes from the devil.
But here's right. I think you're right, Ken. So let me just say this to you, and maybe we're just rehearsing the argument here, but even if you and I were on our own in the police and every police officer disagreed with us, we would still arrest people for raping children, wouldn't we? Right? Even if everybody was against you, you'd still say, all right, I'm worried about my career. You'd say, screw my career. I'm going to do the right thing.
Correct, but listen, here's the thing. We have got a Prime Minister, an avowed atheist, who is a coward. He's an evil-minded man. He desires to destroy Christianity in this country. He has surrendered to the Islamic ideology. He is promoting Islam in this country for the sake of votes. He is the man. He should be taken to court along with all the police officers who stood by and knew this was happening and never done anything about it.
Well, some of them didn't just stand by, Ken. They actually arrested fathers for getting involved and actually did things to cover up for it.
Yep.
This is
They didn't just stand by. They were actually collaborating.
I think there's nothing more shameful to this country to hear about this. We hear about it regular. And the most amazing thing you said earlier, Andre, it's still going on.
Yes.
It's hard to believe how this... Why don't the politicians stand up for this? The politicians who are concerned about
no backbone,
no,
Ken.
you know the answer to that, Ken, and I appreciate, let's do this for everybody. The reason they're going to do it is because these children are expendable in their eyes.
Well, that might be a thought from their viewpoint. It's not really that. You see, there is a satanic influence in the world. People don't believe that, but I know there is a satanic influence in nations, especially in government. Every government in the world is directed by the prince of this world, who is Satan.
Well, power corrupts, doesn't it? I mean, that's basically what we're seeing.
Now,
Never mind, I mean, whether it's Satan or not, you get corrupted in power.
Can I tell you something? It doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or not. I think when Ken asserts the following, that if you are allowing the rape of children in order to get a promotion in your job, congratulations, you're evil.
Yeah,
and there's another thing about Starmer as the Prime Minister. I don't like to attack people individually, but he is the Prime Minister of this country. He is the man who sets the example. This man is disgraceful. I've told you before, he's a deadly, dangerous man, and you'll find out later.
We found out already.
Willfully, this man, I've heard him speaking in Parliament about it, he dodges the question every time. He is not standing up with a moral backbone to protect the children and this nation from evil Muslim perverts. Whether Muslim or not, sexual perverts should all be jailed. That's the way it is.
Yeah, of whatever religion.
in the Christian church, when these wee kids are getting abused in the Christian church, we as Christians, we stand up against that. We don't support that. Now, any man, not necessarily a Christian, who's a man who's got children, and he sees young girls being treated by the head Prime Minister and the politicians and the Labour Party and stands back and watches it, we need to be ashamed of our nation.
Ken, thank you so much. Curtis, I have to say, look, there are people who do not agree with Ken's religious views. Who, with any sanity, would disagree with what he's just said?
You've answered the question, I think. You've given me the answer in your question. I think it's ridiculous, the fact that we are having to sit here talking about this and that our government isn't just taking care of it. We're going to be in a place where people think they can just keep doing this, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse, and it's not going to be a cover-up anymore because everyone knows what's happening.
But he just says what he wants. I mean, like when he was in the Oval Office and everyone knows he's, you know, there's no free speech anymore, and he goes, I'm very proud. So he just says, he doesn't care that we know. He just carries on and ploughs on with it.
Do you know what's going to happen?
Hoping to get in the next election.
People are going to take to the streets, and we're going to see what will happen in Southport, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to happen in every city across the country and towns.
Professor David Betts, I think King's College, I've been listening to him quite a lot. He's done a lot of interviews. He's an expert in civil war, and he says it's inevitable within 5 years. We're going to have civil war. And the guy asked him, oh, how can we turn this back? He goes, well, we've passed the pivot point now. So this is why they're arresting people for a small thing. Well, maybe horrible words on Twitter. They're making them an example, and this is why they're clearing out the cells in order to put in and frighten people, cowing people.
But here's the critical point, I think. So we are not parents, but you are, Curtis.
Yep.
Right. So
we're not Curtis's parents.
So clearly we cannot encourage criminal activity. But if you, as a father, were pushed into a decision to decide whether to allow your children to be abused or take up arms yourself, any rational person would do that. And
it would be reasonable force if you had to.
What Asher is talking about, which is right, is you cannot sit there and say it is wrong to be a vigilante and then say we are going to willfully allow your children to be raped.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Well, I didn't say that. I was just quoting a professor, an expert in this from King's College, who has been an advisor, who says that within the next 5 years, we most likely will have civil war, and we've passed the point where we could have prevented it.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Why don't we give out the phone number and go to the break, and then we can just continue talking about this afterwards, because I know Curtis wants to make a further contribution. 0344 499 1000 at Virtual Ash.
At Andre J.P. Walker.
Nailed it. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, we all did it Friday afternoon, the math lesson. Oh, sorry, we are back. This is Talk TV, and we were talking about poor behaviour. We're with Beanhead. Beanhead, what's your name?
Beanhead. From the Monster Raving Loony Party.
Good to see you again. How are you?
Right. So what I've been told to do, it's your monthly visit, right? And we've never actually got through all the stories. So what we're going to do, Beanhead, right? Beanhead, we're just going to let you talk, because what happens is my producer goes, well, Beanhead came in with 3 ideas, and all we've talked about.
By the way, is it psychology teacher?
It is. That's
in real life. He's a psychology. His real name's Barmy Brunch, but we call him Beanhead because I think it's more.
I guess
more
psychology.
He's got like a gimp mask, a balaclava, but there's beans all around the chin and hair. He's got bacon for ears, sausages for a mouth, and no hash brown, the tomato for a nose.
They're sort of on the side.
Yeah.
From a distance, it looks like you've had some sort of horrendous problem. But actually, you look like. Well, we're not making that joke.
No, we're not going to say that, man.
Well, I was going to say it depends the direction that you come from, right? Wherever I come from.
So, Beanhead, right, let's just remind ourselves why you were come dressed as a baked bean.
So, I ran against Jacob Rees-Mogg in the constituency and got sort of a little bit viral on the Twitter sphere, the hemisphere, or whatever you want to call it.
Now, let's not prejudge anything, but you did assist Dan Norris in winning that election.
Goodness me, yes, 4 days ago. We're not starting with that.
Which let's be clear, maybe proved to be a poor move.
Quite. Innocent till, well, yes, so no comment.
So just to explain to everybody, you have an interest in engaging people in politics. You were the thing because you are, you know, you don't want to be recognised. You don't want, you're a school teacher, you don't want people...
We've never seen him without... He comes in off the streets with that mask on.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
That's actually true.
I love the way you can only see like 2 teeth.
If I saw you out and about, I wouldn't know it was you.
No, that's the magic of it. Although I think psychology sort of narrowed it down for people watching.
I will say one thing. Your school kids can't be that clever, because if you go, who is Barmy Brunch? It literally gives you a name.
He laughs like the Joker, doesn't he? Maybe he's like
no, stop. It's 53 minutes past. Barmy Brunch, just do your stories. You've never, ever managed to do them.
Evil, what an evil Joker laugh.
No, do it.
Okay. Trump's got a war on waterheads. Do you want to know about that?
Yes.
No, go on.
Yeah.
One of the 3, by the way, is an April Fool. So you've got a spot.
Okay,
We're twisting it today because it's the month of April. So you've got to give a little bit of a theme. So one of the 3 I'm going to tell you, if we get through all 3, one of them is an April Fool.
Okay, here we
Let's
go.
convince some people.
Idea for a show.
Monkey tennis.
Okay, so Trump's war on waterheads. Is it real, is it not? I'll tell you the story. So essentially, Trump, with all the tariffs, also has a plan to make America's showers great again. So... in the last administration, the shower head was pumping 9.5 and above gallons of water per minute. And that, apparently, for the last administration was too much.
It's a terrible waste of water.
Took it away. Exactly.
We can do better with our shower
So
head.
he signed a writ in the last 48 hours.
I believe that.
All right, we're going with that. So you're saying, because I'll tell you the end.
Well, I'll tell you what some people do. Have you heard about the brick in the toilet trick? If you put, I'm not.
I did one this morning.
If you put brick in the cistern, you can save a lot of water, and it still works properly. Apparently,
I was
water.
egg bound.
I mean, to be fair, I'm from Manchester, right? Who gives a toss about saving water? I mean, it
was only running water.
And you don't have much roughage in your diet up there as well. It's all bangers and.
I've got to be honest with you. The one day a year when it was before, when it was more than 15 degrees, we got the barbecue out, partying on. Bloody hell, it's got warm today.
I used to live in Manchester, and you know, I'm 6 foot, but you're considered a giant in Manchester, and that because the sunlight's blocked out, they don't get much nutrition. They're all about 5'3".
I noticed, right?
Yeah.
People
have small doorways.
People from the Irish Republic are all very small, aren't they? Right. Yeah. I met the tall one from Westlife, and he was about 5'4", and I thought, how big's the small one? Right. He must have been like.
Well, it's where leprechauns come from.
He must have been like Rodney Corbett or something. Anyway, what's your next story, Beanhead?
Okay, so back down south to London, TfL have introduced a fine £1,000 now if you're caught singing "London Bridge is Falling Down." £1,000 fine.
No, I don't believe it.
Okay, you're going with no.
When was this implemented?
So, I'm going to go with April. No, actually, let's be truthful or lying. Convincing or not?
I suppose you could cause a panic if you said London and you're on the tube going, around London. You could cause a stampede.
My mother went on the Cop once. The only one occasion she went to a Liverpool football match, and instead of shoot, she kept shouting fire.
Oh, dear.
There were a number of
got to be
fire. A number of evacuations took place. She said, I couldn't get into my head. Shoot, not fire. Fire.
Well, that has caused, it has caused deaths in theatres before shouting fire.
So you're going with that one as a real or an April Fool?
That's foolish.
I mean,
I can believe you might have adapted it, but I don't believe just for that specific song.
No. But you think that it's possible?
No,
Okay.
the problem is what Beanhead's doing is, I bet
Twisting it.
I bet there are multiple songs that you can sing that would get you banned and that would get you fired.
All right.
Yeah.
But let's go with
Yeah.
And the final one is there's more churches than ever before appearing on cinema screens in London. So on a Sunday, you can now go, instead of to your church, your traditional church, you can go to Screen 7 of whatever Cineworld or whatever IMAX you want to, and you can go to a church.
I believe that, because there never has been that before, so you'd only need a few.
Okay, right. So there's your three. We've actually got through all three. We've raced through them. Which one's the April Fool?
I don't believe that Cineworld are showing religious mass. I mean, when I went to, do you remember what the pub landlord said? He said, listen, if it took me that long to get the wine and snacks out, they'd really be kicking off. They're not showing religious ceremonies at Cineworld.
I think the second one's the April.
Second one.
No, I just can't think that Trump at the moment is in a trade war with China and he's thinking about shower heads.
It could be.
Okay, we've got a split vote.
Yeah.
So, do we go to a break and then come back, or do I tell you now?
Yeah, because we're going to throw you out.
I'm gone.
We're
right.
not that
So,
bothered.
exactly. It's not the best feature. So the one in the middle, you were nearly right. It's not just London Bridge. So you were onto something.
Yeah.
If you're caught singing, it turns out from the year 2000, and it causes an annoyance to someone such they have cause to complain, you can be fined by TfL £1,000. Singing, just singing
Any song.
It can be any song.
But annoyingly, if you sing it well, it's all right.
I guess it doesn't exclude buskers, does it?
That's the thing,
That's true. They've not factored.
But you have to
that
be
in.
licensed to be a busker now, so
True.
they're all
So
authorised.
And auditioned. You get auditioned.
Yeah, they do get
Yeah.
auditioned, don't they? How some of them get.
They even have
kidding me.
They even can scan your card now, which I think.
What I don't understand, I was saying this earlier, right? If you are brilliant at the guitar and you sing as well, right? You are venerated. If then you put cymbals on your knees and do, which is an
Harmonica.
an additional 2 instruments, you get no respect.
Because you're a jack of all trades, you've got to define your career.
How can it be that if you sing and play the guitar, you've got respect? If you sing, play the guitar, and have cymbals on your knees, then it's less respected.
That's basically what Prince did.
It's a harder job.
I didn't know you had to audition though. I've genuinely thought about at the weekend being one of those living statues.
Can you play anything, Beanhead?
I can actually play the piano.
What
There's
about
the fun
it?
fact.
You could play your piano with me.
What are the grades? Grade 3.
Well, yeah, we've got a contributor. What's his name? Tom Harris. And the producer went, "Tom, you're brilliant on the piano." And he said, "What I did was filmed it and put it on double speed on social media, so it looked like it was going." Okay, so apparently Beanhead is staying with us.
There we are. So, well, we never revealed which one was the April Fool's, so we've got a little bit of
We'll
time.
do it after the news then. Stay tuned and we'll tell you after the
Nobody
news.
cares in reality, do they? All right, so
I do.
All right, I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's do a bit of social media. So if you want to follow me on YouTube, you just search Andre Walker. I haven't been working today because these annoying people at Savills in Windsor. Hello to all of you, by the way. Curtis, how can we follow you?
On X, Curtis L. Hinton.
Okay, Beanhead.
I'm still on Facebook, Barmy Brunch, facebook.com/Barmy Brunch.
Because it's still 2001, isn't it? In Barmy Brunch.
And also Monster Raving Looney Party website.
Yeah, well,
as well.
they've got the whole shebang. Follow them. Follow them before me.
And Beanhead.
All right, 03444991000. We are going to be back just in a couple of moments.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is the press preview with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. Our guest co-hosts today are Finn Adams and Curtis Hinton. Welcome to the two of you.
Matt Lucas as well joins us.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's an insult or because he lost a lot of weight, didn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's like a prune now.
He is. So I'm sort
he's like
of
deflated.
I'm the sort of in between one.
Do you know? I said to him, I bumped into him when he was working for TalkSport, and I went, "Oh, it's really amazing that you sit in these particular seats at Arsenal, because I've got some seats quite near that I get loaned every now and again." And he went, "Oh no, they're not my actual seats. I've got a box. I just, for who do you think you are?" Well, I had to pretend that I sat in the normal ground, and I thought, well, at least he.
Yeah, but they give him. I think he does a little film for them. They used to show it at not Highbury, whatever, Emirates now. They show a little film he does. I think that's how he gets it.
You also look a bit like Terry Tibbs.
I'll go with that as well, because of course he had two identities.
Yeah.
Phone Jacker Plus.
What happened to him? I mean, he was really good. He sort of
Yeah.
burnt out. It was so good, he couldn't really repeat it.
I guess it's sort of like one hit
He's
wonder.
a full-time actor now, and no one knows who he is.
No one knows who he is. Could be me. There we go.
Great. All right. What are the papers looking
Right,
like?
let's start with the Daily Star. One giant heap for mankind, and let's see what that's all about. The moon is so full of astronauts' own waste that NASA is offering a shed load of cash to whoever can clear it up. Close encounters of the third kind, maybe.
I'm sorry. Look,
They're crapping on the moon.
Okay, so the moon is considerably smaller than the Earth, but there's only been about 40 people that have ever visited it. How many times did they go to the toilet? It's just nonsense. That is just made up. I'm sorry.
That's the April Fool, talking to the guy that was on.
Yes.
Really good guy you had on earlier. You get the guess.
What, Beanhead?
Yeah.
Beanhead was... Oh, did Beanhead tell you what the answer was when he was going
didn't.
home?
He said that's one.
Oh, we will never know.
We'll
It
never
was
know.
obviously the water Trump one.
You're going with that one. I'll tell him. I got his number, so I'll sort of let him know.
What's the answer, though? We do want to know.
So, well, the answer actually is the middle one. It's not
that's
London
what I said
Bridge.
originally.
According to Barmy Brunch, it's any song.
Do you want my Alan's fact of the day? Right, there's something called the City Bridge Trust, because the King gave his wife ownership of London Bridge and she never repaired it and took the tolls, so they literally used to sing to her, "London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady," and then they took the power off and created the City Bridge Trust. Another Alan's fact of the day.
There's a load of feces on the moon.
He didn't even care, he just moved on.
No,
Back to the moon.
I do. No, that was a good story.
Hang on. Can we do a moon and poo joke?
I also had another bridge fact to follow on from that. Blackfriars Bridge, it's been around 150 odd 200 years, and it was like a trust as well, and they've got so much money and invested it over the years. It's worth like £1 billion they've got.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
they just build over bridges.
Every year they give away 30 million quid, the City Bridge Trust.
Small change to them. Trump gets his tips out. Yeah, apparently, but we don't know what it is. We haven't got any more. And Mayer's a fashion model. And
hang on, look, I've got to say to you, I don't mean to be critical, but Elon Musk gets younger every time you see him. He's like the male equivalent of Lizzie Cundy. He's just regressing in age. He's going to be. Do you know what's going to happen? He's going to have to be returned to primary school at some point.
He's the same age as me. I was looking. He's about a week younger than me. So
right,
do I look younger?
But on the front page of the Metro, they've also got JD Vance. I just want to ask you a question. Do you agree with the criticism of JD Vance's trousers, that they're overly tight?
Oh, that's interesting. They've blocked out those. Yeah, I've not focused too much in that area, actually. He's done enough to make me just sort of, yeah.
Don't you think he looks a bit like Benny Hill?
I'll tell you what I thought.
It's another doppelganger.
My favourite was when Donald Trump's daughter described how Donald Trump's hair was done. So, for those listening, she claimed the following, that he had a full-on bald patch, right?
Yeah.
But he grows his hair long at the back, and then what he does is folds it forward, glues it at the forehead, and then sweeps it back.
He hasn't seen these new kits you can get where you just shave it and then just glue it on these days.
He was a Flock of Seagulls fan, wasn't he? You won't remember that, Curtis.
I don't know, no.
This memes war. President mocked up in shoe factory as Beijing taunts him over 145% tax and says it will make America pay. A lot of Nike trainers, and a lot of them are actually made in China, so it's going to affect them. What do you think about the tariff? You got any views on this tariff war?
I do. I think he's done well. I think anyone who accuses him of being dangerous has a right to do so, but I think it's paid off. Look, 75 countries called him up yesterday. By the end of the day yesterday, they wanted to get a deal with him, and he's done it. And look,
but is it not? So
paused it.
I've got
it.
Apart
10%.
from China,
I've got mixed views on this. So point number one. He has begged the United Kingdom to have a trade deal, right? And it's us that are the problem. You know, this ludicrous clawing chicken discussion. However, if you say you're going to be fair-minded with the trade tariffs, subjecting everyone to a minimum of 10% is nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, my sister just moved to Canada and she's had a worse time there, obviously, but 10%.
Why has anybody moved to Canada?
Well, that's it. I mean, she's a doctor.
With Mark Carney as well.
Mark Carney.
Is she woke?
Oh, that's a good
She's
question.
a doctor, so
very different
probably,
to me.
Probably.
Yeah, she wouldn't want to be seeing. No, I don't know. She wouldn't like the likes of Barmy Brunch. I don't think. So.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
What
he's
have you had
never
on
expressed
before?
a political opinion.
Who's that? Never heard. No beanhead. But never. So will she fit in Canada?
Well, I just think she's going to struggle. We'll see her back on the plane. I think she's going to struggle with the tariffs. So it's still at 25% for them, isn't it? It's Canada, China staying the same.
Yeah.
I will say one thing. I think the claim that Canada is responsible for the fentanyl, the fentanyl, problem in America. I think that's a thin claim, isn't it?
Yeah, how's he saying all these things and just?
I mean, he just doesn't like Justin Trudeau, does he? Imagine nobody does.
You can't blame him.
But as I've always said about Justin Trudeau, don't be critical because he is Canada's first black prime minister.
Yeah, but it's now, what's his name? Governor Carney, isn't it?
Self-defined.
It's that loser, that useless loser, Carney, who everything he's predicted went wrong, and they won. And Trump fight against Canada has made him more popular, which is unbelievable.
It's worrying, isn't it? Because the Conservatives thought they were going to get in Canada as well.
Yeah.
And I think the polls are going a little bit in his favour. He's not elected. He's not an elected official.
No.
It's like Starmer stepping down tomorrow and, I don't know, Tony Blair coming back into it. He's not an elected
It'd probably
MP
actually
right now.
be better if that happened.
I want to
Wouldn't
bring
it?
it back to
It
this. It says China unleashed a series of memes mocking Donald Trump in the trade war. Could you imagine? We are talking about the two global powerhouses and they're sending memes to each other.
And also, didn't the Chinese ban Winnie the Pooh because it looked like Xi Jinping? I think.
This is the level we're dealing with. Like these are the people that judge how expensive your milk is because of trade.
I mean, I loved the great story where they said Kim Jong-un was a fashion icon and his hairstyle had been widely copied throughout the world.
Right, fun fact.
Yeah,
I've been to North Korea on a tour.
Have you?
You can actually get an official Kim Jong-un haircut. They were doing them for tourists.
It's basically a Beetle cut.
It's a sort of beetle
No, but
cut.
now it's a bit Morrissey, isn't it?
You had
He
to
spikes
pay
it.
a lot.
Have you noticed he's the only fat man in North Korea? Everyone else is skin and bone.
No,
he gets
right,
all the food, doesn't
right. I was watching a programme about a North Korean defector, and she said because starvation's so rife in North Korea, they don't know what a fat person is, and so when Kim Jong-un just basically says he's just a normal bloke, they go, that must just be what he's like, because they're unaware of fat people.
I like the fact he makes them have a picture of him in each house.
I'll tell you one thing that amazed me.
I'd do that.
Was
Yeah, I
when
would do that.
he ate so much cheese he got gout and had to retire. I mean, that is just filth, isn't it? That is just a disgrace.
It's when they did the propaganda video and he's on a horse with his t-shirt off and just thinking, could you imagine if Starmer did that?
I've got to be honest. The thing that always makes me laugh is that, and I say this with the greatest of respect to our friends in Russia, but they haven't quite worked out what camp is, have they? Like you see, I mean, what was his name? Medvedev or whatever his name was. When Putin and Medvedev or whatever his name was
Medvedev
had the matching velour leisure suits and wrestled. I mean, that was. I mean, the other thing with
It's a bit like 70s macho in Russia. They're a few years behind, aren't they?
Vladimir Putin decided in his election campaign to have a topless photo on a horse with a cowboy.
Yes.
That was
Yeah, but the Russians thought that was very cool and sexy,
They
didn't
liked
they?
it, didn't
Well,
they?
they had to say that or they get, disappeared,
but
don't they?
the ultimate funniest one ever. Do you remember that song, Satisfaction? I Can't Get No Satisfaction.
Rolling
right?
Stone.
Right. the British Army made a joke video of that where they're all running around in their underwear, right? A group of Russian soldiers made their own version of it, and it's fair to say that they were unaware of what they were implying to everybody else, because it literally looked like something that came out of a Vauxhall nightclub at 5 in the morning. But it hadn't crossed their mind that one of them sucking a banana. It hadn't crossed his mind. Unbelievable.
Don't forget Mike Graham, if you're listening in the morning, he's just out there. He's got his top, he hasn't got his trousers on yet, and he's eating 3 croissants. So he'll be on after 6 in about 3 quarters.
Oh, look, Rod Hull's on the front page of the Times.
Yeah, we've got Rod Hull on the front, and it says
no, sorry, it's Queen Camilla.
Oh, right, well, yeah, interchangeable. And there she is.
You've never seen her in the same room, have you?
I have seen her with Emu, though. Anxiety drugs send salmon leaping into danger zone. Salmon may be getting more reckless, and your anxiety medication could be to blame. So people are taking this medication, and when they go, in the morning or wherever, it's going into the sea and the rivers, and these salmon are drinking it, and it's making them a bit crazy. Scientists have found that drugs designed to help humans calm down have similar effects on salmon, so they're chilled out salmon. And since these drugs end up in the waterways, this could be causing them to take more risks. So they go, oh yeah, man, I can jump over that. And then a bear's coming out and taking them out. So
No, I'm very sorry, Asher.
But
right,
yeah.
Salmon that are off their faces in British rivers are not being attacked by bears. They might believe that, but it's not happening.
I've heard
Who's funding this research?
Yeah, that's the other thing, right?
It's always like Professor Bob Jones, who's a professor of underpants pulling up.
But they're already full of microplastics and estrogen, and apparently a lot of men start lactating if they have too much cod.
Yeah. So there we go. I mean, that's the thing. There's a good point about the salmon. I mean, of all the research you could do, let's cure cancer. Let's get that sorted, and then maybe look at this.
But you always get these ones where they go, eating a tomato a day will make you less likely to catch hepatitis or something. says. What is it? The University of North Essex Polytechnic, and basically, it's a professor who just sat there going, "Nobody ever listens to me."
But I think it's nice to help the salmon chill out. I mean, they've got quite a stressful life, that rushing water, and
do you know you can't get wild Scottish salmon from anywhere other than England?
Of course, because they're all calmed down with this.
Right,
with these drugs.
This is crazy, right? So. Scottish smoked salmon, they've made it illegal to catch it. It all has to be farmed. But there's like one river, I don't know what it is, one river that goes from Scotland to England, and apparently there's one bloke who just sits on the border, half-inching the Scottish salmon and selling it. So you can only get a wild Scottish salmon from England.
Wow. Didn't Roger Daltrey, he had a farm, I remember, on a credit card advert back in the 80s.
Thing is, do you know what Lance Foreman told me? He said farmed salmon is better. Do you know why? Because they're really fat because they don't swim much, and actually it makes it a bit more juicy.
Protein and stuff.
Yeah. A lot of it they had colour. I'm not saying this about Foreman's, but they had to colour some supermarkets. They had colouring. You can just pick like a pallet. US Steel will not less than 10% tariffs, Britain's told. Focus now on protecting cars from high levy. Britain is facing permanent tariffs of 10% on exports to the US, even if it succeeds in securing an economic deal with President Trump. His senior allies have said, we don't actually make the cars, but it's all for foreign companies now, for German companies, Indian companies.
Hang on a second.
I like tartar sauce, but they've expanded into Jaguar and Land Rover.
Hang on a second, right? Look at this front page of the Sun. Let me just read this at the Times. Let me read this headline out.
Easy mistake to make.
Bricks and mortar best for property. What's the other option? Mott and Bailey. I mean,
no, well, they do make them with frames now. And a lot of these brick buildings you see going up, these modern ones, they're not actually brick. The buildings, the new ones, with the gold balconies, they're cladding that looks like brick.
No.
And it even feels like it. It's not brick.
I'm sorry.
It's like Meccano sets, and they just put these sheets of brick on.
I'm going to
Don't
suggest...
fall for it.
I'm going to suggest to you that houses built of bricks and mortar are probably the best for property. That's not a groundbreaking detail. Wattle and daub has not been popular.
There's not enough bricklayers.
I remember once. Tony Robinson was doing a wattle and daub lesson, right? And this bloke was throwing it at the wall, and it's poo, and it was flying into
It's a mixture of cow patterns.
Getting it in my mouth. Like,
Yeah.
He was eating.
It's mainly grass, isn't it? Especially, with that what cows eat. Armed Forces chiefs under the radar security talks in China. The head of Britain's armed forces has visited China to hold talks on security in an unstable world in the first trip by a chief of defence staff in a decade.
Aren't they the problem?
Yeah, well, maybe they keep your enemies closer.
You don't go to Beijing and go, I'm concerned about global security.
What is America doing this as well? We've teamed up with the EU on the coalition of the willing. We're now going to China. No wonder why
giving them the
Trump's not
Chagos Islands as well.
deal.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Basically, via
I think you basically go to China because you go, I'm very much adopting the Dutch strategy, which is just to legalise everything and then hope for the best. If you go into military cooperation with Beijing, it just means you've given up, doesn't it?
But a lot of our politicians are in, obviously in China's pockets, aren't they?
I've got a brilliant story.
I can't name names, but you can see what's going on.
I don't know if I'm going to get into trouble for this, but I had a very good friend of mine who was a parliamentarian, and he had a Chinese guy that worked in his office, and I said, "What? That bloke works very late at night." He goes, "Oh no, he's a spy." I went, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, what happened was I got contacted by MI6 and they said, this bloke that's applied for your office is a Chinese spy. What we'll do is every month we'll just give you a few dodgy documents that are untrue, leave them in the office." And he said, this bloke was meticulously photocopying everything and sending it to Beijing. It was all just a load of old
Apparently Trump today, I don't know if I dreamt this when I was having my siesta, but he's banned anyone out in government from having a relationship with someone from China. Which wouldn't surprise me.
And that's not an April Fool.
Business or romantic?
I've heard that. Romantic.
I've got to be honest with you. When I worked at the House of Commons, there was a bloke who walked into the constituency surgery, and I've got to be honest with you. I always used to laugh during the constituency surgeries. There were one or two serious issues, but there was a load of jokers. And this bloke walks in and he goes, "I'm very concerned about Chinese tourism in Morecambe. It's very hard for Chinese tourists to come to Morecambe." And my boss wrote on, "How old is she, you dirty old?" And it became clear as the conversation went further on that he had one Chinese tourist in particular who was concerned. He wasn't generically concerned about people from Beijing. There was one particular lady he met on the internet.
And he'd made it all the way to the surgery
to
get it sorted. Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, they used to dance around the issue. "I'm very concerned about Chinese tourists." Are you really? How many are you worried about? Is it just literally one?
Because what can they just write to the person?
No. What we did was we pretended we hadn't realised he had one woman in, and we just started putting questions to the Home Secretary generically about Chinese tourism, and he had to come back and concede that he'd met some bird on Facebook.
Right, have we got to take a little break at this juncture? Yeah, so we're going to take a break, and we'll be back. Don't forget Mike Graham from 6 if you're listening in the morning. It's Talk, it's Andre Nash, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
All unleavened cakes.
Indeed. OK, this is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould. Our guest co-hosts are Finn Adams and Curtis Hinton. Curtis, what have you spotted?
The pundit Prince, I don't know if anyone saw last night, Prince William went to go see PSG.
That's right, because he's a massive Villa fan, as is his son George. I don't know about the others, but George is.
Are you your brother's
Yeah,
Villa
yeah,
fan?
me and Prince Wilhelm, yeah.
Not a great result.
No, but I mean, it was. We started off well.
Yeah,
It was
you did.
3-1 in the end. I blame Martinez. He was too far off his line, and I mean, all right, they were great goals, but you know, near post shouldn't be beaten. But yeah, 3-1, and we've got the home leg at
leg to go,
Villa
of
Park. So.
My favourite detail about Aston Villa was when somebody said to David Cameron, "Why are you an Aston Villa fan?" And he said, "My granddad was the chairman." Well, of course, that is just authentically David Cameron, that, isn't it? It's not like
Very relatable.
Yeah, it's not like oh my granddad used to take me when I was a kid. No, he owned
But
it.
do you remember when he read out what his speechwriter had wrote? And his speechwriter thought, "Oh, Claret and Blue," and he read out, "I'm a West Ham fan," like his anchor man. He reads everything that's put on in front of him.
Well, I've got to be honest with you. It's not as bad as I always say. It's not as bad as what Keir Starmer did. Now, Asher disagrees with this, but I have to say, sausages are the only one thing they agree they don't like, if I'm being totally honest. Right, there's very few things.
Don't understand about beef sausages.
Sausages are traditionally pork, right? The one thing...
Not in my house.
The one thing that the good people of Gaza and the good people of Israel are all agreed on is they're not keen on pork. Right, that's the one thing they don't.
They do have it in Israel. You can get pork. They call it white steak to get around it.
White steak. Unbelievable.
The Daily Mirror Bake-Off Gloria My Karen is in everything I do. That's about her daughter, Karen Keating. She was great. I remember her on Blue Peach. She was an amazing presenter and a lovely person. Rue Wynn.
Did you know her?
No, I never knew her. I just knew her from Blue Peter and all that. I've met Gloria Honeyford, though. Rue Wynn. Rebecca says it's time to move on after latest court defeat to Colleen. I mean, that's still going on.
Yeah, is there another one?
Yeah, well, I think there are appeals and this and that, but she caught her out basically, selling stories, didn't she? So
I mean, I've got to be honest with you. That is just evidence they're bored and rich, isn't it? Because it's like, look, it was interesting at the time, but that was about 10 years ago. Or something.
Yeah, I know. It's going on and on.
I think they should put Wayne and Jamie Vardy in a boxing match for charity, and whoever wins all the cash, and they get to take it.
Wayne and Jamie Vardy.
Interesting.
I think Wayne Rooney would do that because he was a boxer. He was a proper boxer, before.
No, he just looks like one.
Well, yeah.
I
looks like he's been hit by one.
I always ridicule because my cousin is cousins with Colleen Rooney, and I've always thought I'm quite glad that I'm not related. Mind you, like if you're related to Wayne Rooney,
yeah.
I mean Neanderthal man is.
If you had to pick one, it'd be Colleen, wouldn't it? Mind you, he's a good footballer. So 3,000 beat bobbies to target Yobs. Yeah, they're apparently going to be putting a couple of beat bobbies and walk around in there so they can run away from Yobs.
I'm sorry, so Asher, I'm not being critical because you are reading out the front page of the paper, but they've just made that up, haven't they?
No, I have heard that story, but I don't think it's going to happen. And if it does, it won't have any effect. We need beat bobbies like it used to be, and apparently there's going to be the local bobby, that we used to have that knew everyone. If something happened, like a bike was nicked, they knew it was because it's only 2% of population of certain places are responsible 50% of the crime.
Wow, know that.
Yeah, it's true. And it also goes in families, like generations. They not only claim benefit, but they'll criminal. Yeah, it just passes on, whether it's culture or nature. Who knows? Right, Harry's secret trip to Ukraine. After London court appearance, he flies to meet war wounded. Oh, that's nice. Prince Harold yesterday made a surprise visit to Ukraine to meet wounded war victims.
His name's not Harold, it's Henry.
I know, but, we all call it. It's funny, isn't it, Harold? The Duke of Sussex travelled to the Superhuman Centre, an orthopaedic clinic that treats and rehabilitates both soldiers and civilians. Harry's trip to the war-torn country came after he spent 2 days on the Court of Appeal in London fighting to have his full taxpayer-funded security restored.
I don't mean to be critical, but Lviv is very much not the war zone, is it? Right, it's quite far away. I mean, it has previously been part of Poland, right? So it's not exactly the front line.
Well, it must be so. That's where the hospital is. You wouldn't put a hospital where it's going to be bombed. What about Prince Harold? Did you think he's trying to redeem himself?
No, if he's trying to redeem himself, you do it. This comes out in 3 weeks' time when someone else took a snap on you on their phone. It doesn't come out on the front of the paper.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's
just think this through logically, Curtis. You go to court saying, my life is in such danger, right? I need security. And then you fly to Ukraine on your own, right? And go, hey, I'm here.
And announce you killed 19 Al-Qaeda operatives, or Taliban, that's not going to be good for security. It was almost like he was saying that to get false security.
I would suggest to you that if you are in danger in Hollywood, going to Lviv is probably a poor manoeuvre, right? Surely he's proved that
he hasn't got the royal press junket machine that they used to have, so he doesn't get told that these days. Meghan's got to tell him that. And she probably said, go.
They've got a terrible machine.
I'm in such danger of being killed by a terrorist that I'm flying to an active war zone and having a wander around.
Yeah, with drones going out. Yeah. You would say, who's his dad?
And let's face it, he's not. He's going to stick out a bit, isn't he? Ginger guy.
Do you remember they called him the ginger bullet magnet? when he got, I mean, I felt sorry for him when he got exposed as being on active duty. They said apparently the concern was, and I do feel sorry for him for this, that unless they withdrew him, every single British officer who was ginger was going to be like attacked by everybody. Yeah,
I like the term after London court appearance as well. Just know, ex-royals in court as normal. It's just a casual thing.
Absolutely.
Well, it is for him, isn't it? It's like his bread and butter now. Well, it's not his bread and butter. He keeps losing. Anyway, exclusive. We knew that as long as we were together, we'd make it. This is hostages who survived. Hamas described their astonishing bond. I mean, that was brilliant. If they were together, at least they could keep each other alive. I've
got to be honest with you. I don't believe that. I think that they are obviously friends for life because they were in the tunnels together and whatever. But unfortunately, and I don't want to be gratuitous, people who stayed together in those tunnels largely didn't make it.
Yeah.
At the end of.
It's a feel-good story,
I'm
though, right?
Depressed again now.
That's a nice story to read.
It's a bit depressing, though.
You made it a bit more depressing, though.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it must have been. It must be an astonishing bond that none of us would know about, Finn. Being sort of chained to a radiator with somebody, and I'm not being facetious. Being chained to a radiator with somebody for a year, and every single day you think it might be your last. Horrendous.
And they're starving you at the time, and what we know they were sexually assaulting a lot of the women and some of the men. But anyway, let's keep it light. Mike Graham's coming in from 6. He likes to keep it light. The Daily Telegraph. Why we all want a 3-inch conch.
What?
Yeah, that's it, conch. Yeah, we all want a 3-inch conch. I can't tell you why, but it's in there.
Well, the problem is you've read the headline, which says full story on page 3 or whatever. Well, why we all want a 3-inch conch? I mean, we don't even know.
Conch, make it clear.
We don't even know any details of that, do we? We've got no idea.
Yeah. And which is the most elegant uniform in the sky? Presumably this is air stewardesses. I know you mustn't say air stewardesses, Matt, can you? You know what I mean?
What
That's
can you
sexist.
Say? Air stewards? Air stew people?
Cabin crew, they call them now.
Cabin crew, yeah, cabin crew.
Don't they?
I discovered something. It really made me laugh. That obviously, as you know, in the United Arab Emirates, there's not a great deal of diversity, and
trolley dolly.
There's a lot of homophobia. They have, and I'm not joking. In Dubai, they have special club nights for cabin crew and their admirers, right? And that is so. They don't have gay nights. They have nights for cabin crew and their admirers.
Do you see how far we've come as well? In the noughties, Busted released that song Air Hostess. Now, if you saw the news video to that was just absolutely absurd in terms of, it was a sign of the times. It was the lads on the aeroplane seeing all these women all dressed up, short skirts, a lot. Today, blimey.
Somebody calculated once that if you went to the year 3000, your great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter would be about 400.
But she was looking pretty fine.
Well, that would make you about 2,000 years old, wouldn't it?
They'd have to dig her up.
Again, Harry's secret visit to Ukraine one day after fighting court case over his own security. Prince travels to the war
Harry's
zone.
secret visit to Ukraine, which was photographed by photographers.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Oh, covert.
Market falls as Trump admits to transition problems, although it went up a bit today after yesterday's big crash. He's taken off a lot of paused a lot of the tariffs. Apart from China, which is now like 145% tariff. So you got to buy American if you're an American. Cooper refuses to intervene in row over police and anti-white bias. I can't read it because their fonts are too small. But
on a serious note, Finn, I mean, this idea that white people are not allowed to join the police, I mean, it's just straight out racism, isn't it?
Well, have you seen the story in Yorkshire?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's what you're on about. Yeah.
Oh, well
So-
done. There we go. Look, Finn Adams on the pulse of news. What do you think about this racism in the police? Have you heard about Yorkshire? Yes, that's literally...
That's what we're talking about.
I thought it was tariffs in China. We were on about
No,
that.
we moved on from there. Come on. Come on, Beanhead.
He's only...
Oh, here we go. Identity.
Oh, he's
code.
not Beanhead,
No, he's
by the
not-
way.
he's-
Not
he's-
Beanhead. Not when he's not got
He's
his...
only made a cursory effort. Well, so just to
He's
ask you...
Clark Kent at
just
the
ask
moment.
you, have you basically been asleep? You just weren't interested?
Well, how do we segue from China?
Right,
That's just the beauty of this show, man. It can go anywhere.
Just to Finn Adams, right? I'm just going to say to you, right, what you have, you know, when you review the papers, you mention all the stories on the
See,
front
look,
page.
see all the different sections
Yeah.
on the paper.
Yeah, so
they're
might-
different stories.
So
it's
I
read
not
this
just
way?
one big story. It's like lots of sections.
So let me make clear.
Well, hang on. There's two papers.
That's even more complicated for him. One paper can have many stories on. Look.
So as an example, if you look at the Guardian front page, Jarvis Cocker is not involved in the China tariff.
But he's interested in a 3-inch conch.
Yeah, so that one's about Jarvis Cocker and that one's about China. Jarvis Cocker has got no particular involvement in China.
Even though you might think it, because they're both pictured on the same picture. It's an
Well, of course, in
education.
China, they read from right to left.
Really?
There
I
we
thought
go.
it was up and down, wasn't it?
Well, it's a sort of.
No, you're
it's
right.
right. It's right.
I tell you what, I
Isn't that
absolutely
Arabic and Hebrew?
As
Don't
well.
they read down and up or something? Their papers are sideways.
There we go. So I
don't know.
Columns, aren't they? Look like
Columns, like, yeah,
I'll tell you
calligraphy.
what I love. I love tattoos that are in Chinese, and they've just put anything like pork fat and seaweed and stuff like this. They just put anything.
Right, that's a. This is interesting. French give Channel migrants life jackets. So not only are they not stopping them, they're helping them, making sure they don't get any of those horrendous stories of people drowning. You know, we may as well just pick them up from France and bring them in and book them in their hotels now. And apparently there's rumours that the British are actually, well, us, are actually returning the jackets to be recycled again, to bring more over here.
Unbelievable. I think what we should do is go to a break and then we'll be
Yes.
back with the Daily Express straight after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk, and this is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould, Finn Adams, and Curtis Hinton.
Yeah, and just the last story in the Telegraph, a ballet dancer freed in Moscow prisoner swap. So they're now swapping ballet dancers. That's interesting, isn't it? Imprisoned ballet dancers. I think I remember that story. Didn't they put a ballet dancer in prison because he said something against the regime? But ballet dancers are very powerful in Russia, aren't they?
Yeah.
I've perked up. Yeah, they are. And he did
Yeah.
in Moscow.
Yeah, I remember
and
that,
he's
yeah.
still there.
Yeah,
He tried to get out. They arrested him at the airport. There you go.
But they've apparently swapped him with someone else, so
Do you know-
a dancer
do you
for
know-
another
do
dancer.
you know Johnny Weir, the figure skater, claimed that in Russia
I don't know him.
he received less abuse for being gay for the following reason. Apparently,
It's seen as macho
in
then.
the Soviet Union, what they did was every child was just, checked for their competence in something. And if you were a naturally gifted figure skater, they'd just go, you are becoming a figure skater. So normally, with stuff like ballet, you have to be somebody who has the natural gift for ballet, and also the sort of boy who wants to do ballet. That was not the case in the Soviet Union. Ergo, there was no
It's a different
link
kettle of
between
fish, yeah.
effeminate behaviour
Yeah,
and
yeah.
being a figure skater.
Yeah. No, it's like ballet, same sort of thing, isn't it? The Guardian, further market turmoil as White House says China tariffs off 145%. Trump policy decried as self-inflicted wound by former Treasury Secretary. Markets suffered another day of volatility amid confusion over Donald Trump's tariff U-turn. That's his shtick. Keep everyone unknowing. What's he going to do next? Even he doesn't know what he's going to do next. And that's what worked in his Art of the Deal method of madness.
Do you know what I'd like to have seen when he was in the Rose Garden with the tariffs? With those boards, he should have had a little peel-off thing, and he would have gone, China, 34%.
And then a vote from the public, what the public said. I like it when you go,
higher or lower?
We had a much bigger card, but it was too windy, so we brought out the small card.
It was too windy for the card.
Yeah. A quarter of women live with serious reproductive health issues. More than a quarter of women in England live with a serious reproductive health issue, according to the largest survey of its kind, with experts warning of systemic, operational, structural and cultural issues that prevent women accessing care. The survey of 60,000 women across England found that 28% of respondents were living with a reproductive morbidity such as pelvic organ prolapse, uterine fibroids, endometriosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, or cervical uterine ovarian.
Now I don't know what any of those are, but none of those sound good.
They're not good. No, I mean,
but it's just, is it not just a prime example of immigration overran, NHS, no appointments, they can't get seen?
Yeah,
it is. Well, a lot of it is because, obviously with cancer, but now they do give the HPV vaccine, which stops you getting, I think it's warts or something, which can often lead
human
on
papillomavirus.
to human papillomavirus, which leads on to cancers in the future. What's it called?
Bladder.
And,
cervical.
You know what? Cervical cancer. Yeah. In fashion, Prada buys rival Versace. Some people call it Versace, for 1.25 billion euros. Two of the biggest Italian fashion brands will be brought under the same roof after Pravda ended months of speculation with a deal to acquire Versace from Capri. So we're going to get a blend of...
I've got to be honest with you. I think of all the stories that our audience don't care about, I think Prada and Versace merging is just like...
Do you either of you care about that? You've got quite fashionable glasses.
Well, exactly. I'm just thinking about the Russian deal that they've got going on. Because we were talking earlier, weren't we, about the Putin and all of that stuff he's got going with the fashion stuff there. Is there something linked there?
Well, Pravda.
I just want to know why they've got the big China White House thing here, and the picture they lead with is just a load of models.
Yeah, but you know the reason, don't you? They go, what will sell more newspapers?
Are you buying those leather
picture
trousers?
Of that extremely attractive woman, or Xi Jinping?
And again, what Andre was mentioning, Let's All Meet Up. Pulp announced first new album since 2001, and I think they were the kings of Britpop. Never mind Oasis and Blur. They were the ones who actually did they were like a bit like the Kinks and the Beat. They were more original. They were the thinking man's Britpop. Thanks, Chuck.
Her name was Deborah.
Man's.
It never suited her. Do you remember that song? Let's all meet up in the year 2000.
But don't forget Oasis. You can win Oasis. Don't tell them about the Oasis. Oh, it's finished. You can't. Right, Daily Express. Heroes warn councils not to cancel VE Day parades. Apparently, they were going to cancel it in some village, but. What's his name? The Lib Dem leader who looks like Wayne Rooney. He phoned in and told their council they can't do it. And some people are saying that was a set-up. The council just did it. So Wayne Rooney, the guy who looks like Wayne Rooney, the Lib Dems, could come in and be all the big rescuer. But he's done a good job, and now they're going to go ahead with the VED commemorate. How dare they not commemorate the heroes that brought freedom that kept freedom in this country?
Talking of heroes, right, and it's just a personal bugbear of mine. There's a picture of the King on the front page of the Daily Express with about 50 medals, right? He hasn't really done that much in the military.
He's humble, isn't he?
I mean,
but you get one for each thing you're in, don't you?
I know that I don't want to be critical because he's only about 15 years old, but what's his name? Was James Windsor received the Queen's Jubilee Medal because apparently his grandmother, the Queen, had spoken to him about some of her public issues, and she claimed he had acted as a royal advisor and therefore was given the medal. And you think, what has he actually done other than had dinner with her?
Yeah.
Great.
Charlie's getting a medal these days. Putting on one sock, putting on the next. There's two medals, trousers on. That's what he's getting medals for. That's what he's wearing.
But he's got too many now.
It's
It
11.
looks vulgar, doesn't it? There's
Is
like
it 11?
There's
Yeah,
too
I've just
wide for
counted
his.
them.
I've got a medal. Do you know, I've got a medal for being a colonel of Kentucky, which I am in fact.
Do you know about the secret fried chicken recipe then?
No, but I genuinely hold 2 military commissions. I'm both an admiral and a colonel, and I'm not joking. They are actually given by American states.
Finger licking good.
The best one is I'm an admiral of Nebraska. Right, this is a great story. In the War of 1814,
you weren't in that war.
No, the federal government demanded that Nebraska supply them with a group of naval officers. To which Nebraska pointed out that it's a landlocked state. Therefore, they literally had virtually not even any rivers, right? So they found some bloke who was a deckhand, promoted him to admiral, and the governor of Nebraska has been giving out the admiralty ever since. So I'm a naval officer in the United States of America.
And do you get anything with it?
Hopefully not. Because
He'll get called up if they go to
He might get called up to the Nebraskan War.
Can you imagine me in charge of Trident? That's crazy.
French give life jackets to small boat migrants. Yeah, we know about that. They're helping them get over, and so are we.
With that story, Ash, whilst you're on there, what makes me so angry, and I've said it so many times, is that Starmer stands up there with the coalition of the willing next to Macron, and he doesn't do a single thing about it.
Smash the gangs, and they haven't smashed one gang because they know they're not going to. If they said we'll stop them and we could end this overnight like the Australians did, he would never say that. Because, well, why don't you think he wants to stop it? Is it because they're future voters? Is it because he's a coward? Is it because, I don't know what?
He's putting them in communities. He's putting them in hotels. People are moaning that they're there, costing their taxpayer. He's going to go, well, look, we'll give them community jobs. Okay, once they get jobs, they have a right to stay.
I think it's not a political reason. I think he's just obsessed with the view that all humans are equal and all humans have the right to come to Britain. I just think that's...
Which isn't true. Not all cultures are equal anyway. No. You come from a culture that throws gays off buildings and subjugates women and stuff like that. Then.
Asha, I won't.
Sorry, before it becomes illegal to say that.
Asha, I won't hear a word against Mutty Magic. It's clearly.
I used to watch that show.
Yeah, voodoo dolls. Equal but different.
Concrete proof Britons want a right to die choice. Record numbers of Britons are signing up with Dignitas. A trend campaign is described as concrete evidence that people are crying out for greater end of life choice, which doesn't mean that. The UK
greater end of life choice. What they have you put down? I mean, that's not great, is it?
Yeah. The UK accounted for some 331 new registrations with the Swiss clinic last year, more than any other nation. A total of 2,200 UK citizens were members at the end of 2024, up by more than half from 5 years ago. I mean, is this also because, do you think older people going, I don't want to live here and it's horrendous, this, what's happened to this country? And they would be older, they'll have experienced this country. I knew when it was great in the 70s, but it was even better in the 50s, and they're just thinking, I don't want to be in this world anymore.
There's not enough Chinese tourists coming to Morecambe.
No, that's correct.
No.
That's correct. It's a real worry. It's a real worry. I need more Chinese tourists.
Well, look, Bedford's going to get infiltrated with this new Universal theme park that's going. They're all going to come into London.
Tell me about the theme park in Bedford.
The Universal have announced, and the government claim they secured 28,000 new jobs. Absolute rubbish. They were looking in the UK to this anyway. There's just no deal with the government. And they're taking over a huge bit of land in Bedford where they are building a big park. I think they're expecting 5 million in the first year to go through directly.
Oh, yeah, what's the park? What's it going to...
Universal.
Yeah, Universal Studios, isn't it? So
Universal Orlando, Universal Bedford.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be Jaws coming out in Bedford.
That's one of the themes. I think they've got that as one of the
Well, that's the famous Universal Studio. I went on it back in the 70s, and you go on this train in the water, and suddenly this big Jaws comes up and sort of goat comes at you.
It just doesn't scream like Disneyland Paris, like Orlando, Florida.
Even that, though, when it came around, I thought, well, it's not the same.
Blobby World in Morecambe.
That's still there.
What was it? They lost $5,000 for every man, woman and child. Blobbyland.
Bury St Edmund. Mr. Noel Edmund, wasn't it? Buried him.
Blobby World in Morecambe. Noel Edmund sued the council for apparently it was something like by associating Mr. Blobby with Morecambe, it denigrated the value of the brand. And I'll tell you what, something. I've got a great story. Do you remember you won't remember him, but the Labour MP for Lancaster was called Hilton Dawson, and what he did was he was gonna come round to the Conservative candidate Steve Barclay, later became an MP. He was going to come round with a cheque for all of the underinvestment by the Conservatives in the NHS. Right, so my mate discovered this. Hilton Dawson had been the leader of the council that lost all the money on Blobby World. Right, so he banged on the door with all the press. My mate opened the door dressed as Mr. Blobby, picked up Hilton Dawson, thanked him, and took the cheque inside. time. Absolutely disgraced him.
Right, I think we've got to take a little break at this juncture. 03444991000. Join us. It's the pay-per-view. Mike Graham's coming up from Sticks of Listening and Warning, and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Indeed.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould, Finn Adams and Curtis Hinton are our guest co-hosts today. I spotted something in the newspapers the other day, and admittedly this is me being a little bit biased, but it's about the Manor Hotel in Datchet. Doesn't matter that you don't know where that is, but the fact that this little village on the outskirts of Windsor has now been really pretty comprehensively destroyed by the fact the hotel has now been taken over by illegal immigrants and people claiming refugee status. And that's not me having a go at them. The problem is, this was the place where events went on, this is where the weddings took place. So actually, the economy itself has been so badly damaged.
Yeah. They're hubs, aren't they, in the communities?
In where I live, in Dunstable, we had a place called the Old Palace Lodge. I used to work there. I qualified as a chef there. And they just, without notice, cancelled hundreds of weddings that were taking place over the course of the 2-year agreement that they had. And then there was the clips have been doing the media circulation. And there was a big thing when Andrew Selou was in the Priory Church, and the local councillors were there too. And people were just saying, like, you don't know what you're bringing here. You don't know. You can't say you know what you're bringing here. The hotel, it'd been there for years, came out and said that they wouldn't have survived after COVID if they hadn't had the money.
That's true. I mean, funnily enough, about the Manor Hotel in Datchet, once again, I appreciate that people don't know it, but the Gill brothers that own it, they've been destroyed by COVID. So a lot of these people have had to do this.
Yeah. But now there are now hotel owner billionaires now.
Yeah.
I mean, they are. And I mean, they're throwing money like it's water going out of fashion. There's no responsibility.
The other bit, which we've mentioned on this show before, but Finn, is worth pointing out, they sack all the staff.
Yeah.
And then bring in people from the Home Office.
Because you don't need bar staff and people like that. You know, you just need a few security people so they can get rid of them.
I'm sorry. It's not acceptable. You were supposed to know that, Finn.
This is the thing. I mean,
he still thinks we're talking about China.
Yeah, we're going all around.
Yeah. He's made really no effort, has he? No effort.
He thinks Prince Charles is going to move into one of the hotels.
So you're a fully trained chef?
I am, yes.
Have you not thought about doing what, naked chef Jamie Oliver did? Because he wasn't even he was a sous chef, whatever that is. But you could, what's your specialist dishes and stuff? You could have a TV show, You've got the presenting skills. You know, you're an. What's your specialist dish then?
I like a traditional roast.
He likes a brunch.
I like a
Traditional roast.
I like it to do a nice roast dinner, all fresh ingredients. That's the thing for me is the quality of the ingredients. Someone could cook you the most amazing meal.
Local air, the Dunstable, you've got loads of great places.
Surrounding areas, we've got loads of great places.
With all due respect, that's what very weak chefs want. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, you should be able to cook an amazing meal with really poor quality food. That's the sign. Like Greg, what's his name? You know, he just gets
bland steak
with a sock on it.
I'll tell you what. Do you know what I like on the Sunday?
Spam.
I like a Yorkshire pudding stuffed with haggis and gravy on top.
Sounds like something. Who's that chef that mixes all the weird stuff? That's it, Heston Blumenthal.
He wouldn't do that, I'll tell you that.
He made stuff like snail porridge. I mean, did you?
That's it.
I think that
Snail
goes
ice
a bit
cream.
too far when they do snail porridge and everything's disgusting.
I'm always of the mindset of you taste everything once.
Yeah,
that's enough.
Do you remember he had that terrible food poisoning because he had a load of bottom feeding fish in that were by a sewage pipe and like 200 people got. Not his fault though.
I don't know. I worked for the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead during that thing. I mean, I will say one thing about Heston Blumenthal, like it or not, he willfully refused to shut that restaurant when people were falling ill with norovirus for months and months and months. There was one guy.
Norovirus porridge. He called it.
What was it? There was a sports presenter who got norovirus once from the Fat Duck and then phoned up the restaurant and they went, "You couldn't possibly have got it from us." He went back a month later and got it again.
Well, at least they're consistent. So anything that you'd like to talk about in the last few minutes?
I want to go back to the grooming gang. So we spoke about it earlier in the programme, but I just think that Starmer isn't being held accountable. I think he's in covering it up. He's complicit with it.
But he's the Prime Minister. How can we hold him accountable? He's got all the MPs. He's got a vast majority. How can he be held to account?
Anna said about I agree. But for now,
but
that's
he
a very
needs
good
to be.
point.
He needs
Anna,
to be.
who was on earlier, she turned around and said about Rupert Lowe's new his funding.
Investigation.
It's not going to be nowhere near enough money.
No, but it will push. It may be like their court case with the Manchester one. It might push them into doing something. I mean, it's unbelievable.
They've dragged their feet for what 3 months.
But it will get something. I mean, they've raised, I think, over £500,000. They will be able to do something and get some knowledge out there about it.
Oh no, I agree with that. The other thing though that they're going to have the issue with is that no one is going to have to participate in it because
but if they refuse to, that's going to look a bit strange, isn't it? It's all good in a way.
Very simple. What you could do is just falsely claim that people are involved, and then force them to turn up to deny it.
My first one would go, Starmer, come in.
Well, actually, that's not stupid. Do you remember the Daily Mail when they named the Stephen Lawrence murder and said, if you're saying you're not, sue us. So you could do something like that.
What about? Do you remember George Galloway and the oil? What was it? The Oil for Food program. Well, I know standards have dropped in Washington, but you're remarkably cavalier for a lawyer. That bloke, you saw his face, and I just thought, you've got real problems there.
He did do well there, old George, didn't he? Yeah.
But I think he needs to be. There needs to be in 2029 when he eventually loses the government, because he will. There needs to be a full investigation, and the government now needs to be investigated as a separate.
And the councillors involved, and the police, and there needs to be harsh prison sentences.
And I agree. They should be serving as much time as those who did these horrific crimes.
I'd arrest the chief constables and put them in prison.
Yeah.
Because, I mean...
Without trial.
They're enabling.
If they're guilty, if they're involved in it, they've enabled
You're an accessory if you've helped them get away with it.
But Finn, it's a criminal offence if you're a police officer to ignore a criminal offence.
It is, although I
think you have to personally witness it.
Yeah, or no, but that's not I don't know. I think they have a bit of discretion. I was on my way home once, and my mate.
That's a fascinating story.
That is a great story. Start well, and it doesn't finish so well either. He didn't get arrested, but he could have done. And the police officer took his time to explain to him: if you are riding a bike and you're reckless, you can be arrested. But I'm not going to arrest you because it's too much paperwork. That was in Bath.
Yes, it's an old law, isn't it?
That's a real winner. You
There's the anecdote.
It's an old law, like driving with wanton aggression from 1875 or something. It's like a funny law.
Yeah,
but
I think they've updated it. But
if you get caught once, I get the whole right. Stop being an idiot, move on, because it's going to waste police time. But then if you get caught, if the same person catches you again, I get it. But
wasn't there somebody? There was somebody who was very, very dodgy. I won't say because obviously this is goes out in the morning. But they wanted to find a reason to prosecute him, and in the end it was something like there was sort of the 1540 Act, which was outraging the taste of a Christian country, and it was like he got prosecuted.
Does that still exist, that law?
Yeah,
Treason as well as that's still going on.
Treason's still on there. Yeah. You can't be hanged for it anymore, though.
Yeah.
Just drawn and quartered.
Yeah, indeed. Hung, drawn and quartered. No, I think somebody said to me that up until I think Tony Blair, you could be sentenced to death for treason, but they couldn't actually carry it out. And apparently the people like Soviet agents, they used to sentence them to death just so they could do the prison exchange or whatever.
And also, falling asleep at the shipyard while you were guarding, that was a death sentence. In fact, in the old days, just going out with your face blackened with death penalty.
What?
Yeah.
That's not
You
true.
do
No,
that.
it's true, because you were up to no good in the 1700. You went out with your face black. You would
Justin
be
Trudeau.
up to... Now they should bring that law back for people who wear balaclavas at protests. In fact, I think it does exist. Well, not the death penalty, but
I've got to be honest with you. I bought a bike, and I looked completely.
Well, that's a great story.
I feel better now.
I looked completely ludicrous on my bike.
Stabilisers off.
No, I looked completely ludicrous on my bike. So I went round Windsor early in the morning with a balaclava on, and it's fair to say, I went past the William Hill bookmakers when they were opening in the morning with the bike and the balaclava, and they didn't like me very much.
What did they do?
They panicked. Because suddenly some big fat bloke in a balaclava went round the corner.
How good are you at riding a bike, Andre?
I will tell you why I got.
Hold up a second. Sorry, that should have been. Yeah, I can ride a bike.
No, what happened to me. The bike itself committed an ill crime against me, which I will not explain in great detail. But what happened was, I was riding along and I didn't see the curb, and I put my brakes on, and the bike rode up and violated me. And I know I'm not joking. It did. The seat violated me.
What, the pole? You mean the seat came
The
off and it
seat.
was just the pole?
No, the seat. The seat. Well, I don't want to explain in detail.
Maybe the seat a little point.
There's people having their Brit. Look, Mike Graham spat his croissants out. It's so disgusting.
I was violated by my bike.
Outside
So I thought,
William Hill.
I'm going to have to get rid of it.
Was it a titanium seat?
Oh, it was. I'll tell you what. It wasn't
Was it
great.
telescopic?
No, right, don't. But it was. If I'd have been wearing jeans, it would have been better. But it did, and I thought, well, I've been attacked by my own bike. It's not.
That's got to be a title of a podcast.
Go to the police.
No, because I don't think an inanimate object can be done.
Anyway, we've got to thank the Barmy Branch Beanhead and Curtis Hinton here, because we're just you're going to be joining Mike Graham in a sec, so
Okay, thank
Keep
you
it
so
safe.
much. And Mike
Thanks,
Graham
guys.
is just up in a couple of moments if you are listening on Friday morning. Oh, yeah.
join me. Right.
Okay, and to those of you who are still on Thursday night, right, okay, well, it looks like we've got Finn Adams and Curtis Hinton who are disappearing.
Question for Beanhead. Well, we can't see it on
can't-
here. What is it, Chuck? Can you just tell us in
We can't ask Beanhead because he's not here.
Does the school know you stood as a candidate? Leia wants to know.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
And would they have fired
better
him
ask
if you stood for reform?
Oh, that's a question. Do you know what? When
Yeah.
Barmy Brunch, when they announced, they were telling me in the corridor.
Can you make it a bit snappy?
we're
We've got
still
20
going with
seconds.
that.
Yeah,
Well,
20
that's it.
seconds, Beanhead.
Basically, if it was reform, there would have been issues.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Glad
That's
it was
what's
announced.
happening in our schools. Politicised schools, banning Easter.
Well, I'm just going to say thank you so much to Curtis Hinton because this is your first ever appearance.
and lost. No, it was great.
As a guest co-host. Oh yeah, of course,
And
Finn
Finn's first
Adams,
one,
our first ever appearance. Beanhead
Well done,
was
Finn.
gone. All right, back in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, this is the Late Show with Andre Walker and Asher Gould, and we are joined now by Lois Perry from the Heartland Institute. Lois, how are you?
I'm really well, and I tell you what, it's really nice to be back in the studio. So I've missed you, boys.
Oh, here we go, stirring. Okay, so look, the reason we've asked you to come in tonight is because you've spotted something about abortion. Tell us.
Yeah, it's actually pretty scary. So basically, during COVID, you had. The law was changed so that somebody, if they wanted to have an abortion up until 10 weeks, could literally make a phone call and say, I'm pregnant, no checking, I'm a certain amount of weeks, no checks, no GP, nothing. And they send them 2 tablets. One would kill the baby and the other one would induce the miscarriage.
Oh, my God.
Which, okay, I don't agree with that. I didn't agree with any of the stuff during the lockdown, to be fair.
Sure.
But they brought it in. It was supposed to be for a very certain amount of time. It was supposed to end in August 2022. But then there was a couple of very pro-abortion, abortion up until after birth type MPs, including Stella Creasy, who brought an amendment in, which meant that it didn't get abolished. So you've now got a situation.
Abortion from home.
Well, yeah, but girls are lying. So you've So you've got one girl, poor woman, who was 8 months.
Oh my God.
And she ordered the tablet. She said, I'm 7 weeks, no checks, still no checks to this day.
Wow.
And
That's highly illegal. I mean, can that not be? I mean, in the Omar bombing, they killed unborn babies, and that was murder.
True.
Well, it is, and so therefore there was a court case, but there was leniency because she was found to be mentally not, and also she's never got over seeing the face, as she said, of a
Must have
dead
been
baby.
horrendous.
But the
trauma.
worst thing that's happening is so say for example you've got an abusive partner, he doesn't want his girlfriend or wife to be having a baby, or he just wants to hurt her in the worst possible way. There's one example that Right to Life have given me, actually, a brilliant charity that's been working with the whole assisted suicide stuff, highlighting all the stuff with that. So he got a mate of his girlfriend, must be a really nice girl, to call up, pretend to be pregnant, sent the tablets, no problem, crushed them up, put them in his wife's drink.
Oh, my God.
She had a spontaneous miscarriage at 6 months pregnant. So you've got women that are fibbing.
What happened in that case? Was he arrested?
To be honest, I'm not sure.
It's hard to prove it, I suppose.
It's very hard to prove, and it's just so dangerous. And I mean, if you look at...
But also, Lois, you are a mum. I mean, if you're 6 months pregnant, how big would the baby be? I mean, that's going to be...
Well, I'm not being funny. Even
they
if
can live, they're viable.
Even if you're 12
they're
weeks
viable.
pregnant, if you were given the tablets and you went... I don't believe you should be given the tablets in a home setting.
No, I get that.
Anyway, but you would still be giving birth to a
You'd
little...
see the formation, a fetus,
You'd see the face. They would have a face. But if you look at the polling, the Daily Telegraph found that only 9% of women right now support the continuation of the pills by post scheme. Only polling has shown that only 1% of women support introducing abortion up to birth. But did you know, in the Netherlands, if you give birth to a baby that's disabled and they haven't spotted it during the actual pregnancy, the baby can be euthanised up to 12 months. Now, babies can speak. They've got a few words by 12 months, but in the Netherlands, this is the whole slippery slope.
They also, I think it's Netherlands, I know Belgium did it. If a 19, 18-year-old girl's depressed, she can have herself euthanized as well. I mean, they're
it's
too...
horrific.
Well, I don't understand
But
this.
these women, it's dangerous as
But
well.
also, in the story, there was a story in the paper today, a quarter of women live with serious reproductive health issues. A lot of people don't know that if you have an abortion, once, it's a risk to your future pregnancy ability. And you have it 2 or 3, you can get that endometriosis and stuff, and it can make you infertile if you have too many abortions.
That's what happened, unfortunately, with poor Marilyn Monroe. She'd had a few terminations, and when she really wanted to have a baby with Arthur Miller, she couldn't.
What amazed me about this is that you've got a son and a daughter. So let's just think about the daughter for a moment.
Yep.
When people are going, what we need to do is we need to promote women's rights. So your sports you can't do anymore because they've got all of these blokes competing as women. So you don't have the ability to have sports, but what you do have the ability to kill your unborn child. Oh, what a step forward for women's liberty.
The thing is, what I'm talking to you about tonight is not an anti-abortion stance. Yeah, it's saying that if you must have an abortion, and there are women that have very valid reasons. Although I will say that it's only 2% that are to do with rape or incest or abusive partners or anything. Yeah?
It could just be failed contraception.
It needs to be safe and needs to be in a medical setting, or at the very least, a doctor needs to see you, because if you're being abused or raped or there's incestuous stuff going on, or rape gangs, which is very much
and
in the
they're
news.
traumatised. There should be counselling after
But
for
the
women.
GPs are the ones that spot it.
But here's what I don't. Here's what I
absolutely.
particularly dislike: these women, principally women, who stand outside abortion clinics and say, "Hey, I'll help you." They've criminalised that.
Well, yeah, because there is also a big argument that when a lot of women have abortions because they feel that they can't cope on their own. And when somebody says to them, look, we will support you, we will help you, we will point you in the right direction of support, financial support, this, that and the other, they would really want to keep their baby. But the other thing is, you go to a GP and you're being coerced to have an abortion, the GP can pick up on it, yeah? You're on the phone and the bloke standing next to you, they're not going to know.
Plus the loophole, like you said, you could be 7-8 months pregnant and get these pills.
But what they're trying to do at the moment, this is the pro-abortion nut, like really mega pro-abortion to birth nutters, the Labour MPs, obviously. Their answer to this is not to stop the pills by post, the abortion pills by post, but to decriminalise abortion up until birth for the woman. So then that means that you have basically you're decriminalising selective gender abortions and things like that. So we really need to stop this.
So obviously you are normally a political commentator. You've literally come on to represent the people that are attempting to stop it. What are they trying to do?
They want these pills. They want doctors.
So there's legislation.
They want the legislation that was supposed to come. It was supposed to be a temporary measure.
Yes.
And it's been kept on, and it just shows a complete disregard for human life. This is nothing to do with faith, and actually this is nothing to do with being anti-abortion. You can be very pro-abortion, but still think that this is disgusting because women's lives are at risk.
So are the babies. I mean, if you're saying up to term, that's a human being at 7-8 months old. Well, even younger than that. They're thinking they're human beings.
Well, they are. I think once you get to a certain point, as you say,
it's viable, isn't it? About 5-6 months they can be born.
What about when you hear about these babies that have been taken out and are desperately trying to breathe?
Well, imagine that. Okay, that's horrific. But imagine that happens when the woman is conscious and it's happening to her in her little flat in North London or whatever. I don't know why I said that because I live in a flat. Well,
you've just given away where you live.
No, I just. But yeah, you know, imagine the woman's on her own, and we really need to sort this, and we mustn't let ideology and like the whole net zero nightmare. We mustn't let ideology kill people.
I love the way she linked in net zero. I mean, how you managed to
Don't worry, I won't mention Indian bots.
How you managed to squirrel in net zero into a debate about it?
Well, because what I'm saying is that sometimes for these kind of people, these wokes, ideology takes precedence over human beings.
Well, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that. So what about your organisation? Tell us what's going on with that, man.
Right, so it's extremely exciting. So the Heartland Institute...
Is it really extremely exciting?
Well, I'm extremely excited, Andre. So last year, I was asked to set up the Heartland Institute UK in Europe. It's an American organisation. It's been going for 40 years.
Yes.
It is not officially Trump affiliated, although it has advised the administration on certain issues to do with net zero and has been successful in its advice. It's been taken on board. And it's a little bit job done in the States. So they decided that what they really needed was a very loud Essex girl to represent them in the UK and the rest of Europe. So it's a big job, but I'm trying to do it. I'm on my own with my team. We've got a little tight team at the moment.
And look, people bring you in as a lobbyist because you cause a firestorm, don't you? I mean, no, I'm not being critical.
Too much sometimes.
Yeah, she was in LA about 6 months months ago, weren't you, with the
Yeah,
causing a
yeah,
firestorm?
I'm always at the front. Yeah, I'm always causing the riot.
But I mean, I think when you had what was it, Car 26 or whatever.
Car
it was.
26.
Yeah, it should have changed numbering.
I mean,
shouldn't it?
that really, a lot of TV channels, not including this one, but a lot of them didn't allow people on who were any way critical of the net zero agenda, and you uncancelled them effectively.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that.
I think that's
no,
great.
that's great. Yeah, thank you. And to the extent that the BBC actually had, like a couple of weeks ago, somebody that disagreed with the whole climate thing. But Nigel Farage has actually stood up and done speeches and accredited Car 26 with making net zero being abolished a reform policy. So if indeed there is any, if he does win, then look.
But apparently the
look
drill baby drill, because of Trump's tariffs, the oil prices plummeted and it's not worth the investments anymore.
Everything will settle down. Trump is just annoyed with everyone taking the mickey out of America. Things will settle down. He's not an idiot.
Now let's move on. What's going on? Because you're close to Nigel Farage and reform. What's going on with the Rupert Lowe situation and Nigel Farage?
I thought I wasn't supposed to talk about.
Is he
all of
forming
that
his
stuff.
own party with the other guy?
Well,
from
I'll tell you something.
Reform. There was rumours about that.
Well, I'll tell you something very, very interesting. There's this woman. Badenoch, sorry.
not
And
Badenoch.
she did this big announcement.
We can't talk about that.
We can't
She's
talk about
running,
it.
Yeah, we can't
Okay.
about it.
All right, so you just asked me about it, and then I'm not
Forget I
allowed
even
to
did that, yeah.
reply.
Rupert
Okay.
Lowe, though. I was
we
asking
can
about
talk
Rupert Lowe and
Okay,
Farage.
yeah, no, that's fine. As far as I'm aware, he's gone. He's not. He's an independent, and
Is he going to launch his own party with that? There's rumours that other Reform MP might.
This is
leave
why
him.
I was mentioning that, but the thing I'm not allowed to talk about. But
Right.
but so there was rumours that he was, but now he's not. Okay.
I think the slight problem is if you attempt to discuss party political management during the Runcorn by-election, you can't mention the Runcorn by-election. It becomes really quite a difficult debate. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to go to a break. We're back in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, so what we can do? We're going to do some calls. Yeah, all right, let's do Steve in Walsall.
Oh, look, we need to change the horizontal hold. Steve in Walsall.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
You all right?
Hello.
I was watching. Good evening, ladies. Lady Louise as well. Sorry. I was watching the news earlier on, and two things on the news I was amazed at.
What was the first one?
It showed refuse collectors being attacked by 3 chaps. One was wheeling a tree felling axe, smashing the bin lorry up.
Yeah.
They got one of the refuse collectors on the floor, beating the daylights out of him, and it was all recorded on the CCTV television on the bin truck.
Why were they doing that?
Pardon?
Why were they beating up? I mean, they want the binmen there where you are. You've got the strikes in Walsall as well, presumably.
Near miss with an accident with the bin truck and these chaps' cars. Anyway, they went to court. The one got jail for 4 years. The one got jail for 5 years. The one got jail for 6 years.
Yeah.
Why on earth weren't they all jail for 6 years? Number one. Number two, I thought they'd get at least 10 years for what they did,
Yeah.
which was a disgrace.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the other thing I saw on the television was somewhere up Yorkshire.
This is the second amazing thing.
Jobs available.
Yeah.
And it said ethnic people only need apply. Now.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about that, yeah.
No, that's disgusting.
Yeah, it's just... Well, it's racist.
It is racist.
And even though they go, oh, this is the law, well, then the law's racist.
Yeah, that's right.
The thing is, the law is racist. I mean, if I'd got a business or something, and I put an advert in the paper, white people only apply, Mr. Starmer's double-tier police would soon be around to arrest me. I don't know what's going on in this country, I don't, honestly.
Tell us what's going on in Walsall, because I know Walsall, and what's it like? It was bad 20 years ago, it was going bad. What's it like now? You've got rats the size of pigs running around there, apparently.
I mean, I best keep my mouth shut. I mean, because Andre, last time, he will forget what Warsall's like, so I'll forget that, but...
Why, what? Does Andre got a thing? What have you got against Walsall?
I've never
They
been.
make the Queen's saddle.
Hang on, I've never been to Walsall.
But she's dead.
No, well, they make Prince Charles, then. King Charles.
I mean, there's knifings.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing happened, the daughter of a friend of mine, she was in a certain area of Walsall, and there was six youths on these little motorbikes going around all dressed up like ninjas, going all down the pavement, wheeling machetes about.
Yeah, they don't care, do they? I mean, well, about 20 years ago...
I'll tell you something. I think all of us are worried about bicycle ninjas.
I used to work in Walsall, down Bradford Street, you know, not far from the Arboretum, and I knew this guy from Liverpool who lived in Walsall. He goes, hey, Liverpool's nothing compared to this. I mean, he was from Liverpool and he was frightened.
Did you take me there when we went on our mini break to Birmingham?
I didn't show you Walsall, but, you know...
My uncle was found not guilty of rioting in Liverpool. Right.
Impossible!
On the following circumstances, he walked out to the centre of Liverpool on his lunch break as an accountant, and there was a riot going on. And do you know how they have those trolleys where they sell fruit? You know where they...
Yeah.
So he said...
A market stall.
He said, I don't know what came across me, but he said, I picked it up and ran with it and just went, through it.
Like in Oliver, Frankie Howard, the fruit owner.
And he said he was hauled into court.
Oh.
He was hauled into court. Hang on, let me finish. He was hauled into court, and they went, how we knew it was Mr. Ray, he's dead now, so don't worry, you can't get into any trouble. How we know it was Mr. Ray was he was wearing a shirt and tie, whereas everybody else was wearing a parka jacket. Yeah. And the magistrate turned to him and said, what have you got to say, Mr. Ray? He said, I didn't know it was fancy dress. And the magistrate laughed and let him off.
Just shows you a suit and tie and a quick repartee.
No, because back in the old days, because we didn't have... I ended up, like I was talking earlier, how I ended up at the poll tax rights, because we didn't have internet. So I was 18 with my mate, and we go, should we go up Leicester Square? And we went up there in the middle of the night, go out to tube station, suddenly we're in between a line of like 300 coppers and a line of 500 rioters.
But why were you in Leicester Square in the middle of the night?
Well, it was about 11 at night.
I've got to admit one thing that I did, which may be bad, but I feel justified. What happened was, do you remember when Conservative Central Office came under attack from the students? Right, we went over because we thought our mates were going to be attacked. Right. I was in the middle of the riot, right, and then the TSG, the Territorial Support Group, charged our position, and I couldn't make it away from the TSG quickly enough, so I expended a communist. I grabbed him and went, "You're here for this purpose," and he did get quite badly hammered.
Sorry, I just thinking I love all the military lingo that you use.
No, but I thought if I can't run fast enough, just expend.
You like James Bond did in that film where he brings the woman around, she gets shot in the back, he covers it with his finger. Steve, did you have another amazing thing to tell us? I think you did, didn't you?
Well, I mean, you was going on about Warsaw earlier on.
Yeah.
I mean,
you were.
No, I was as well. Yeah.
A lot of people who live in Warsaw won't go down into the town centre.
It's like Birmingham as well. Yeah.
No, I've got to be honest with you. I was in Birmingham the other week and it was perfectly pleasant.
Well, it was the Reform Party thing, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, but we had to go through
You just
that.
went by the Rep Theatre.
Hang
Hang on a second. At New Street Station.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's nice around there. They're in the middle bit. They you go a bit outside. Rats the size of pigs.
No, just
Andre managed to get lost, right? We're walking from the actual, what was it, the station, to 5 minutes round the corner to the hotel.
I was 50. By the way, it was a 5-minute walk. Now it was 15 minutes in a taxi by the time.
So it's because it's all one way.
Yeah.
But then you were only there for 5 minutes. You did your little piece to camera, didn't you, with Farage, and then you had to come back.
That was marvellous. Oh, the vintage champagne was out. I just had one half glass of it. Can you come back to London? Yeah, all right. Why not?
Did you know that I was sat right at the front of the VIP, right next to the podium?
No. Can I tell you the best bit? Right,
Yeah.
this lot don't know yet.
I'm surprised you weren't on the podium.
So
doing
obviously, I'd come back.
What, the lap dance,
Yeah, like the
sliding
rave,
down.
like-
James Whale was taken ill at the last minute, and so what? I mean, I'll be honest with you. I lied. I told Talk that the only ticket I could get was a first class. And I was guzzling champagne on it.
So you carried
so you
on.
did get your champagne then?
I did, yeah. I did.
Okay.
And also dinner.
You got dinner as
Yeah, we
well?
did, yeah.
But the
That's
rats
great.
and that, the bin problem in Birmingham is exacerbated.
Exasperated.
Because, you know, people are fly tipping. There's not, fridges weren't going to get picked up by bin men and sofas anyway, so people are taking advantage of it, and it's disgusting what's going on. But
I've got to say, and I wouldn't encourage anyone to commit criminal acts, but those people in Birmingham who think that if the bins aren't being collected, the best option is to set fire to the rubbish are not wrong from a hygiene point of view.
well, with the weather getting warmer as well,
Yeah, I
they
know,
will
but burning
become a health.
plastics is not particularly...
Well, you get Viles disease, you can be dead within 24 hours, which is, you know, if you get a bit of rat spittle on your finger and then wipe your
You're
nose.
obsessed with these rats. How
Well,
do you know they're
that's
the
what I'm from
size of
Birmingham.
pigs?
Rats the size of pigs and getting bigger. That is a fact.
Right, do you know? Right, so I moved out of my flat today, so I can admit this now. They've been kicking off about the stink in the building.
Why?
Right,
What have you done?
No, let me tell you what I do.
Yeah, the curry.
Right, what I did was I bought this. It's called something like blue pearls. Right, rat poison. Right, so the rats absolutely love it. Right, and so what I do is at every entry point where a rat might come into my flat, I deploy this.
Isn't it
stuff.
illegal though?
Have there actually ever been
Isn't
any
that
rats
illegal?
in your flat?
Well, they haven't got that far, no.
No, I know. So do you think this might be a slightly paranoid thing?
No, what happened?
Okay.
No, what happened when I lived in Sunningdale? We lived next door to a pizza shop, and I'll tell you what I did.
But you're in Windsor now.
I threw this stuff out. The rats loved it. They were running. I'm thinking, oh, you're going to regret that. And then they're all just, you could see them just going, oh.
It's very cruel though. You know, they're an intelligent animal. But remember, they go for your throat. So
They're not nice
yeah,
animals.
they'll go for your throat and eat your jugular.
And they are
Don't worry about that.
incestuous.
What?
They are
Rats are incestuous.
No morals.
Look, of all the criticisms you
morals.
can make of rats, they're into incest. I mean, well,
It's not nice though, is it?
well, rats aren't nice.
Yeah, I know, but
some
I'm just
people have
adding an
pet
extra
rats.
dimension of not niceness to rats.
So are you citing evidence that we should be anti-rat?
I think we should be.
Can I tell you
since
something?
the plague, we have been pretty anti-rat.
We
to
have
be
been
honest.
pretty-
But I can
Yeah.
tell you something. People who hate foxes, they kill lots of rats. I used to see at the old
they
Talk
do.
Sport a three-legged fox bite a... All right, Steve. I saw a three-legged fox on a rat, and it sort of stood there, and it jumped up, bit the rat like that, and went back and watched the rat convulsing.
So hang on. You've seen three-legged foxes. You've seen
Killing
rats the
rats.
size of pigs.
Pigs in Birmingham,
Do you
and
think
they're getting
are
bigger.
there like some weird mushrooms that grow near where you live?
Well, there's that as well.
Yeah.
If you're unlucky, it's one
It's one of those days where the mushroom stroganoff was questionable at lunch.
Steve, is that it, or have you got any more amazing things?
Well, not really. I mean, well, one, yeah.
Go on.
I was renewing my internet last year.
Is that the end of the story?
I was having a joke with the girl I was talking to about defending yourself.
Yeah.
End of. within 10 minutes, the police was round my house, wanted to know what I'd been saying, why was I saying it. They wanted to see me guns and everything.
Why? Oh, right, so this woman reported you, or had they been looking at your internet secretly?
Pardon?
Had they been looking at your internet secretly, or did this woman report you?
She reported me because I was only having a joke with her about defending yourself, and the police...
And so you ended up with 3 police round your front door?
They were knocking the door. I have to show me guns, my gun licence and everything.
So you have a gun licence, and you were saying you'd shoot these rats or whatever.
Actually, this is the Rupert Lowe problem, isn't it? That if you're being investigated for a crime and you've got a gun licence, they really kick off.
But he hadn't been.
Well, that's it. Yeah. But the other thing was, when I mentioned I'd got a bomb in my motor in case anybody tried to steal it, they wanted to know where.
Well, I'm not really surprised about that. If you do say to the police you've got a bomb in your car, they will normally come round.
No, hang on a second, Steve. You are criticising. You phoned up Blue Yonder and told them that you'd fashioned a car bomb, and then
you were surprised the police turned up.
One copper said to me, he said, "Have you made it?" I said, "No, I bought it."
What has the world come to when police turn up to a bomb threat? Oh, unbelievable!
I'll tell you what, it was like that. It was like that when I organised an event in Parliament when I worked there, and it was to promote the use of americium 241. What I was thinking about, I don't know.
What is that?
It's that little nuclear isotope that they put in your smoke alarm. Right. Anyway.
Oh, I knew that.
So this bloke arrived. This bloke arrived, and he said, "What we want to do is we want to have we want to get people to see this thermonuclear device." And I went, "Right, okay. We'll take it into Parliament and display it." And I went to him, "What is it?" He said, "Well, basically, what you do is you put nuclear material on it, and as it denigrates to lead, it puts off bits of heat and whatever." And I went, "Is it like a bomb?" And he went, yeah, it is like a nuclear bomb. So one day, I mean, God, what was I thinking?
So you got a nuclear bomb.
We took a nuclear bomb into Parliament.
But why does it not surprise me that you facilitated that?
It did have no nuclear material in it.
Right, okay.
So it was. But I thought, you know, of all the things you could take into Parliament, a nuclear bomb was probably not.
Well, you're not even allowed to wear your hat in Parliament, but you managed to get a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, nuclear bomb was probably
a modern day guy thought.
Nuclear bomb was probably not a very good idea.
No, probably not.
Overall, that's not. I think the most I offended them was when we had a snow fight on the terrace and I nailed John Prescott.
Oh yeah, he didn't throw a punch, did he?
No, he didn't. All right, we're going to be back just in a moment. 0344 499 1000. Back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
What was that?
What?
We didn't manage. Roger Gewald, we normally get him with that, where we go, Roger, what do you think? Well, let me just say, we go, oh, Roger, we're back. The Bailey Arceus. He's not a big fan of Andrew Bailey, is he?
No, he's not a big fan of Andrew Bailey. But Roger sends me, and not just me, but I think possibly 2 or 3 million people every day WhatsApp clips of himself on a group chat thing. So, yeah, he's a prolific
There is
entertainer.
one thing that I've learnt on my time as a contributor and now as a presenter. If you cold call producers to try and get on shows, it just doesn't work.
No, that's
just doesn't-
absolutely true. Unless you're sending them like an op-ed that you've written.
Oh, no, I mean-
Or you've got something on them.
I mean, like today, you said literally there is something to do with abortion which I want to talk about, and that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that'd be something you'd be interested in. The thing that's interesting about that particular abortion pills by posting is you don't have to have a strong stance on the anti-side. It's just common sense. That's why I thought.
No,
it was a good...
to be honest with you, we've produced a show that is vehemently anti-abortion.
What,
And
in
we're
all
doing-
circumstances?
We haven't got into the granular detail, if I'm being
Okay.
honest. What we've done is we have sidestepped 1 or 2 issues.
Yeah.
But look, can I tell you one of the reasons why I'm quite anti-abortion? If you look at the number of abortions that have taken place,
It's 1 in 4 pregnancies now end up in
and the number of migrants we brought to the country, I think we just need to force these women to have the kids to repopulate the country. I know it sounds silly.
Yeah, you're such an easy
Well,
going
you can't force
guy.
them, can you? Sir?
You can't force women to do. But I think the point of it is there is a point where the baby is past a certain amount when you're pregnant, where it's not just about the woman's right. There's 2 people.
babies.
There's
Yeah,
literally 2 people.
Look, I'm against abortion, but I do accept that there comes a point in between it being 2 cells and birth where it becomes conscious. I don't know at what point
Well, there's
that is.
73 million abortions a year. But I'll tell you one thing, right? Both my children, I could see their personalities at the 12-week scan. So
Really?
Yeah, you could see. I could see them. You could see their face. You could see everything. So these poor women who are ringing up pretending they're 7 weeks when they're actually 13 weeks,
Oh,
are giving
horrendous.
birth at home, it with no medical consultation. It needs to be banned.
But that must be. I mean, if you're deliberately having a miscarriage, do you know what I mean?
On your own at home.
God.
Yeah.
Well, and the
my-
trauma that'll go on throughout your life,
But
possibly.
absolutely. And my little girl, I say my little girl, she's 5'6" now. It's a joke. She's 3 inches taller than me. With
So she's bigger than Ronnie Corbett.
with cheekbones that you could like slice cheese
Salami.
with, salami. But she
Have you ever sliced cheese with her face?
not this week. I'm planning on doing it. But she could ring up. She could ring
Yeah,
up.
horrendous.
So therefore, there's that. Then in that actual case, there would be underage whatever, and the GP wouldn't be aware, and the mummy, me, I wouldn't be aware.
Horrendous.
It's very dangerous.
Right, come on. Have you got an earpiece in?
Yes, I've got an
Right,
earpiece.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to congratulate
What?
the gallery at Talk, because you might be the first guest ever that we've actually put an earpiece on before the calls start.
Wow, I'm honoured. I need to get pneumonia and have nervous
Well
breakdown
done,
more
Matt,
often.
for that.
Well done, well done.
First time he's ever got it right.
Well done.
Ali, West Yorkshire.
Because we had Alistair Chambers in one day, and we were asking him to respond to a caller, and he didn't have an earpice. I mean, they didn't.
You just had to guess what had
It's
happened
just
from
had to-
our answers.
He had-
Yeah.
Not only have I got an earpiece, I was given a coffee. I had a nice little chat. That your assistant producer showed me a photograph of his beehive.
Well, by the way, so the gallery have just asked, why did Johnny Gould and Asher Gould have a different accent? And what?
Well, I mean, the reason is because we're in Birmingham, houses are very cheap, and he lived in the posh part of Birmingham. It was that big, the house, and I lived in the other side where we all spoke like I do.
Oh, what a load of rubbish. When you took me to Birmingham and there's all these back-to-backs and it all looked like Peaky Blinders, and you said, I'm going to show you where I grew up. And we rocked up outside your family home. It was like the Bel Air mansion, the Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like,
That's
it
such
cost
a load of
300
rubbish,
quid.
Asher.
it cost 300 quid for a house like that.
Well, no,
No, it really didn't.
No, Johnny Gould once said, we've got the same accent, we just use our voice differently. And he went, let me do an accent. Oh,
It's nothing like me.
OK, Ali is in West Yorkshire. Ali, you are on Talk. Are you considering becoming a police officer?
Drop the phone, Ali.
Hi guys, you all right?
All right. Are you in Leeds, aren't you?
Yeah.
I remember.
So you are allowed to be a police officer because you're non-white, aren't you?
I guess so.
Yeah, so just to remind you, West Yorkshire Police have said that they're not going to allow white people to become police officers anymore. Unbelievable.
I don't know about that, but yeah, that's
Well, they're very low in the pecking order. What do you want to talk about, though, Ali?
I just wanted to ask about. I reckon you're happy, aren't you, Ash?
I mean, I'm quite happy.
What would be the relevance to his happiness?
Asher actually means happy.
Is it?
Well, you must
Nice.
be happy because Israel's committing the war crimes again, so you must be happy.
The what, sorry?
Israel's committing the war crimes again, so you must be happy.
It's committed war crimes.
Yeah, he's saying you're happy that because obviously Israel are getting away with committing war crimes.
Well, they haven't committed any war crimes.
Oh, no, of course not. Just bombing everybody.
Well, that's called war. I mean, that's not war crimes. That's war. I mean, if you look at the amount of people killed, it's less than 1 to 1. It's going to... I mean, they keep just saying 50,000 people died. They neglect to say that a lot of them, like half of them, are terrorists. They neglect to say that Hamas has killed a few thousand of them. They neglect to say that some of them are just natural deaths. You'd be about 10,000 in that time. And then they call it a genocide when it's a record for the amount of innocents killed, keeping it low in military history, and it's being studied for its how they're doing it. So does that answer your question, Ali?
No, well, you can say that about Gaza. You'll say they're all terrorists, but what they're doing in the West Bank, what they're doing on Lebanon, on Syria...
Well, they've got the same thing, in the West Bank. Hamas are in the West Bank as well. What would you do with Lebanon? Have you not heard of Hezbollah, who were sending in rockets and intercontinental ballistic missiles from Iran? I mean, what do you think Israel should do? Just sit there, or do you think they should go and, ruin them all?
Right, Ash, I don't want to be critical, but do Hezbollah really have intercontinental ballistic missiles?
Iran did. I'm not sure about if it was Hezbollah.
Like when Iraq had weapons of mass destruction.
Well, no, not like that, because they didn't. You see, there's a bit of a difference.
Ali, can I ask you this? So there's lots of people who've got very, very, very heartfelt beliefs one way or the other. What would you do about the situation that Gaza has been taken over by a terrorist organisation, Hamas?
Well, I would say to that, if Palestinians had their own state to start off with, if they weren't driven off their own land back in the Nakba in 1948, they wouldn't be in the situation.
So that entitles them to rape and murder children, does it? And strangle babies and 4-year-old kids? Is that resistance in your book?
Just like what they're doing in...
No, not like that. The one's different. One they're trying to avoid it, and one they're not, and we all know that.
But Asher, also, can I make the point that the actual Gazan people are protesting themselves against Hamas now?
Well, of course, they weren't protesting a few months ago.
I know they weren't, but what I'm saying is that's not being covered.
That's true. The mainstream media aren't really covering that.
No, they're not covering that.
Yeah, what do you think about the Palestinians who don't like being murdered by their own government?
Yeah, they're also not covering the Israeli soldiers raping Palestinians.
Yeah, because it's not actually happened, and you can't list any evidence of that. Go on, give us one then.
All online. If you maybe...
Oh, it's all online, is it? What, on your Twitter account?
No, if you want to blind to your Zionist propaganda...
Why would it not be in the news? Look, why would it not be on BBC News or Al Jazeera? It would be, wouldn't it? They'd love something like that. It wouldn't just be on the internet. It would be on everything that's against Israel, which is most of the mainstream media. Yeah, you've got no answer to that one.
No, I've got plenty.
It's not on the BBC. They'd love that.
Maybe if you stop talking shit...
Well, I'm waiting for you to give an answer. Do you stop that? I can give me an answer on why it's not on the BBC or CNN or Al Jazeera. Away you go. It's not
all online, all the news articles.
Why is it only online? Like I said, listen to the question. Why is it not on BBC?
You Zionist...
Oh, we control the BBC, do we?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Hang on a second. Ali, that seems to me to be a reasonable question. There have been accusations of fake news. If Israeli soldiers were raping women in news, why hasn't the BBC reported it?
They're not raping women in Gaza, they're raping the Palestinians.
issue in the studio. Let's go to a break and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Think of an answer.
Ali, stay here.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, that was quite a good joke I told during the break. But we are on a serious subject because Ali's phoned up about his concerns about the Israeli Defence Force in Gaza. Ali, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to pull you up. We just had a bit of a tech fault. But but look, how do we separate out what is truth and what is propaganda when it comes to, you know, any of these stories about Israel or Gaza?
Well, what I've noticed on the mainstream Western news channels is whenever they have discussions about what's going on in the Israeli attack or whatever, or anything, they'll always have the Israeli side. They'll always have an official from.
I thought they always quoted the Hamas figures.
Are you just going to let me speak? Are you just going to?
Well, no, I just interrupted you. I can interrupt you.
You're talking absolute shite. That's what.
Well, what am I saying? I said they use Hamas's figures. What's shite in that then, Ali?
Jeez, you just like you're so.
What's the Palestinian Health Authority? Who runs that? Who do you think runs that, Ali? Hamas do.
No, the Palestinian Authority runs the West Bank.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Gaza and them parroting the Hamas death figures.
Well, they're actually pretty reliable, to be honest.
Oh, are they? They're murderers, rapists and that, but when it comes to they're sticklers for figures, even though they've actually taken off a few thousand because they weren't true, even though they're not quoting any terrorists are dead in that.
This is a non-Zionist trope that...
Ali, sorry to interrupt, Ali, but let me ask you this question. So, look, I've always said that I'm not pro-Israeli. The reason is because I don't think I don't have any inherent reason to be on one side or the other. So, but one thing does strike...
the enemy of this country
one thing does strike me. If you look at Israel, if you think Israel's government is terrible, you can get rid of it because it's a democratic country. If you don't like Hamas, it's very hard to see what you can do about that.
You end up flying off a building.
But does Ali believe that Israel should be there in the first place? Because then it makes your point sort of irrelevant to him.
No, because I've previously said I support two-state solution. There's a nice trap, though, what you Zionists do. You love to trap people.
I'm just asking the question.
What's the trap What's the trap you think we issued there?
You think we want Israel, like, managed off the map? We're total rubbish. I've always
Hamas don't want that at all. They really like it, didn't they? They proved that on October 7th. I repeat repeat, and they'll do it again and again and again. They love Israel, don't they?
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. My understanding,
Ali, make a lot of sense, Ali.
Ali, can I ask you this question? Because
why do you keep saying Hamas to me?
Because you're talking about Gaza. Do you think there's a link between what's going on in Gaza and Hamas? There's a bit of a link, isn't there, Ali?
Shit, you are, mate. You're so.
Is that all you can resort to? Because you've got no argument. You just say shit, and you think that wins the argument. Makes you look like an idiot.
No, because I can 50,000 Palestinians murdered. I think that's
here we go. And no terrorists. I mean, you're showing yourself there. No terrorists, just 50,000 Gazans.
Oh, yeah,
how many were killed by Hamas? Over 1,000 of their missiles misfired and landed in Gaza. Do you know about that? Genocide, rape,
all the
You're talking crap, Ali.
But Ali, can I just ask you this question?
Is he going to let me ask?
Not really.
Ali, I just want to ask you this question. If somebody stands up and says, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, isn't that talking about getting rid of Israel completely?
Yeah.
Well, no, that's historic Palestine from the river to the sea. That's what it was.
But
what about historic Israel, which is 3,500 years old?
Hang on a minute. I thought there was no such thing as Palestine. I thought that it was just Jordan and Egypt.
And Syria,
The British didn't have a mandate. Yeah, the people didn't exist. That's another note.
Well, no, it was the Romans made the name Palestine, Philistina.
It does make me laugh.
It's a made-up place.
Apparently, the Jews have no right to be in Israel, yet one of the main places is called Judea, and Jesus was from there, and he's quite a famous Jew.
Well, that's why they're called Jews, and before that, when the Jews were in Israel, they weren't called Jews, they were called Israelites. Now, the clue's in the name there, Ali.
Yeah, and Judea.
Yeah, and then Judea, and they all went to Judea.
Yeah, well, why did they all go to Eastern Europe then, from the land?
Well, because they were kicked out, didn't they, and they spread out.
Yeah, the Romans kicked them out, I thought.
That's right, yeah.
But the majority are people from the Middle East who were kicked out of all those countries.
No, well, I'm not saying there isn't a land for the Jews that were kicked out. I'm not.
I mean,
they might as well be their historic land that they're indigenous to.
Hang on a second. Ali, I mean, do you find it frustrating? Because, I mean, obviously, you're saying you support a two-state solution, but there are people who just see it as either the Israelis can win or the Palestinians can win, and there can never be any rapprochement.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that. I personally think, there needs to be two states, because obviously the Jews are not going to go anywhere. They're not going to go back to Eastern Europe or anywhere else.
Well, they're not from
most of them weren't from there.
Yeah.
So, but also Palestinians are from the land. I don't know what you're laughing about.
Well, no, they were from Egypt and Syria. They were from around there. I mean, a lot of them came in the late 19th century because there were already Jews there who had made the land actually useful instead of a malaria pit.
It's just total
truth, Ali. I mean, you don't know much about it. We can all hear that.
Asher, can I just confirm my understanding that there was people had a choice basically at the time whether they could, fight Israel, its right to exist, or they could integrate and become Arab Israelis. And so the people that chose.
And actually, Israel in 1948 said, "We want you to stay and build a state."
And a huge number have.
And in fact, if you look at Christianity, which is being ethnically cleansed in the whole Middle East, it's gone up, I think, 400% in Israel in that time, because a lot of its Christians are having to escape the rest of the Middle East.
Look at Christians are being persecuted by Hamas in Gaza.
Well, Bethlehem used to be 80% Christian, now it's about 10%. That's happened over about 20 years.
No, to be fair, we've all thrown loads at Ali. Give Ali a couple of minutes just to respond.
Yeah, so when the Zionist militias were driving out Palestinians in the 1948 Nakba, they really gave them a chance to be part of Israel.
They did. There's actually official forms and letters saying, please become a part of us.
1,000 Palestinians driven out by Zionist militias. They were bombing them as they were driven out when they're going into Jordan, into Egypt. So this idea that...
Well, they were told to leave, weren't they? They were told to leave by the other Arab states, and Israel said stay. And the ones that stayed are now Israeli Arabs who have the best standard of living in the whole of the Middle East. Right?
Yeah, and
the best
women
educated.
Have equal rights.
The women have equal rights. And they're in Parliament, they're judges that put away Jewish people into prison.
Yeah.
So how's that apartheid?
They don't put away the Zionist settlers.
Yeah, they do. And what do you think happened in Gaza in 2005 when they said we're going to take all the Jews out? And they protested and they grabbed them and pulled them out physically out of Gaza.
What about the Zionist settlers that have murdered over 1,000 Palestinians in the West Bank in 2 years?
That's not the IDF. I mean, they haven't killed 1,000 in 2 years. There has been the odd murder.
Well, hang on. Okay, hang on. Let me ask you another question.
Not a thousand.
Let me ask you another question. Right. Okay, so if you think about it, Las Malvinas, the Falklands, when the British Royal Marines arrived there 150 years ago, they threw out the people that were living there already, yes? And now everybody that lives in the Falklands is British. Now, the argument that Argentina makes, which is not a stupid argument, is, well, hang on a second, the original population of the Falkland Islands have been removed, and there are now British settlers there. However, if you think about it, what are you going to do? I mean, you can't say 150 years later we're going to boot you all out. I mean, if you
plus there were Jews there for the whole 3,000 years. They've been there the whole time.
If you were extremely unhappy about 1948, throwing out a 10-year-old Jewish person still it doesn't become fair, does it?
Well, did I say I want to throw?
No, I'm saying you are.
But also, the entire world was carved up after the Second World War. You know, why is it only the state of Israel that is continuously questioned and thrown in?
Because the state of Israel is the only country that has an ongoing occupation of a people. That is why.
No, it's the only one that has to put up constantly.
The Chinese occupation of Tibet is reasonably serious.
Yeah, okay. But they're the only country that have had to put up with, being their right to exist, having to be continually
Anyway, we've got loads of calls. Ali, thank you so much. I'm sorry we've kind of harassed you a little bit, but Georgina's in London. Georgina, you're on talk.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I want to bring a point that's very much closer to home, and that's about these young girls who have been raped by the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. I watched the programme Kevin O'Sullivan tonight, and I watched this young woman who I've got to say was totally inspirational. How that girl could sit there and go through everything she went through, the trauma, actually humbled me. I was humbled by this woman of what she's actually overcome.
Ellie Reynolds. Ellie Reynolds.
It was honestly, it just puts everything in perspective. Now, I feel that the police...
She was raped for 5 years from the age of 13 by these gangs.
Horrendous.
So, multiple times.
So, do you know what? There's not a word big enough to describe what these children...
She was drugged and locked in chains in flats.
I know.
I mean, that's just medieval torture.
I heard what the girl said, but I just want to get my point out, if I may. The police, the counsellors, the social services, who, I've got to say, they were put in an order of in loco parentis, which means in place of a parent.
Yes.
In care of these children. A lot of these little girls were in care.
Yes.
What the heck were these people doing to let these children be in such danger? These people need crawling in front of a high court judge so they can't worm their way out of it, and they need bringing to account for what they've done.
I believe that we should be imprisoning the police that helped the grooming gangs.
And the politicians.
And social services
counsellors,
and the counsellors.
And government, people at the very top if they're involved.
You know what? You can read minds, because since I've seen that young girl this evening, that has been on my mind. But what has made me feel physically sick is the fact that this is for the Muslim vote. That is why this has been hidden. That is why this has been a dirty little secret.
OK, well, Lois, let me respond. Do you want to respond to that? Because I have to say, I genuinely believe that the Labour Party and others do not want to stop these grooming gangs because they fear it may risk them electorally.
Well, that's absolutely right. And I think, was it Jessie Phillips?
Jess Phillips, yeah.
Jess Phillips that announced that she didn't look that comfortable announcing that those particular only five very small investigations, £1 million each, that's not a lot of money.
It's not, is it?
That they would be dropped because her seat is in contention.
She only won by 600 votes.
Yeah, even the health secretary's seat is in contention.
So her morals and scruples go out the window. She could have resigned because of this and made herself something. Instead, she's ruined her whole reputation. I thought because she obviously didn't mean any of the stuff she said before. She was just virtue signalling.
I thought what was extraordinary about her was when she had that pro-Hamas mob at her election count, and she said that they were misogynists. You know, she claimed it had something to do with...
that mass attack in Cologne, you know, and she said, it's like Broad Street on a Saturday night in Birmingham.
I know, it's disgusting. But Georgina, don't you think it's ironic that the kids that were in care actually received no care at all?
Horrendous.
They received the least care.
The opposite of care.
What I wanted to say is this is going to backfire on the Labour government.
I think that's right.
You're absolutely right.
Isn't it? Yeah.
There are millions of good Muslim people in this country.
Yes, absolutely.
Millions of them. And they do not want it to be tainted by association.
Well, actually, Georgina, I thought that was the most disgusting thing, because they let these guys away with rape and then said, the mosque told us to do it. There is no evidence whatsoever that mosques lobby.
But why aren't these mosques coming forward and pressuring the government, saying we want this investigation done, Georgina?
I was going to say the leaders of these mosques will come forward. They will come forward and they will denounce what has happened with these.
But why haven't they?
Yeah, but the government wouldn't be interested. They don't.
Well, if it got on the news, if someone came on here from different Muslim communities and said we demand an inquiry, it probably would help.
Right, we are going to have to leave, Georgina. I'm so sorry because we've run out of time. Lee is in Manchester. Lee, you're on talk.
Oh, you're all right, mate.
Hello.
With Ali,
yeah.
I'll tell you what a piece of shit he is.
Who?
Well, we can't comment on that.
Who is? Sorry.
Ali, he said the caller.
Oh, right, okay.
We can't comment on that.
Well, he did swear himself. But,
he did swear himself.
But why do you think he's wrong?
Well, personally, it's a religious war.
Right. I mean, can I tell you something? I think a lot of Jewish people would say the problem is Hamas, not Gazans.
Not one person in his family are probably from Palestinian.
Yeah.
They're all Pakistani grooming gangs.
Well, his family are not.
I think that's going a bit far. They're obviously not grooming gangs.
But what you're saying is that it's sectarian. It's because it's Muslims, and it's not.
Yeah, but what Lee's saying is,
they
don't really know about the situation, but they pick a side and say things.
Hang on, I just want to be clear on one thing. In defence of Ali, it is simply not true to say his family are Pakistani grooming gangs.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying...
but you didn't say that.
Okay.
Right, OK, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to thank everyone. We're going to say that you can subscribe to my YouTube. Andre Walker haven't uploaded anything for a day or two because I was moving. I'm homeless. Asher is at Virtual Ash.
What's